please. Welcome everyone to the special meeting of council, Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. Call to order. That'll be $1, Chief. Thank you. Late items. We will be adding a late item. You have it in front of you there, and that'll be under section 91E. Closed. 91E. I have a Councillor Baxter, Councillor Petrosi. Any questions on that? Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Any public input? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Worship. I don't have anyone signed up for public input at this point.
Okay, thank you. Adoption of minutes, 4.1, regular council meeting minutes, December 9, 2025. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on December 9th, 2025 be adopted. Councillor Egan, Councillor Charney, any errors or omissions or questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Public hearing. Public hearing. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive input from the community and staff on the proposed bylaws as outlined in the notice of public hearing. The public hearing is being convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act. The public hearing is being held in an in-person format, and member of council, staff, and the public are participating in person. Council will use the established speaker list. At the end of the speaker list, the chair may call on speakers from the audience. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to address council for a first time and should begin remarks to council by stating their names and addresses. After everyone who wishes to speak has spoken once, speakers will then be allowed one additional 5-minute presentation. Any additional presentations will only be allowed at the discretion of the chair. Please do not repeat information from your previous presentations and ensure your comments remain focused on the bylaws under consideration this evening. If a written submission has been provided, there's no need to read it as it will have been already seen by council. It can be summarized, ensuring that the comments are pertaining to the bylaw under consideration at this hearing. All members of the audience are asked to be respectful of one another as diverse opinions are expressed. Council wishes to hear everyone's views in an open and impartial forum. Council is here to listen to the public and not to debate the merits of the bylaws. Council may ask clarifying questions. The corporate officer has a binder containing documents and submissions related to the bylaws which council has received and which members of the public are welcome to review. Everyone at the hearing will be provided an opportunity to speak if necessary. The hearing will continue on a second night. At the conclusion of the public input, council may request further information from staff, which may or may not require an extension of the hearing, or council may close the hearing, after which council should not receive further new information from the public. And the public is being, as the public hearing is being streamed live over the internet and recorded in accordance with Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. I will now ask the corporate officer to introduce the bylaws. Seal.
Thank you, Your Worship. This public hearing is for 2 bylaws. The first is for the official community plan amendment bylaw number 2409. And the second is for the zoning amendment bylaw 2413. And I can confirm that advertising has been done in accordance with section 94 of the community charter for both bylaws. And then now I will turn it over to staff for a full presentation in regards to the bylaws.
Your Worship, we cannot hear.
Not a word? What's going on? Okay, let me try that again. I will read the whole thing again. How's that? Can you hear me now? No? Well, that's about as far as I can go. I'll talk louder. How's that? So, yeah, actually it is. So, see, there it is on. So the purpose of this public hearing is to receive input from the community and staff on the proposed bylaws as outlined in the notice of public hearing. The public hearing is being convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act. The public hearing is being held in an in-person format and members of council, staff, and the public are participating in person. Council will use the established speakers list. At the end of the speakers list, the chair may call upon speakers from the audience. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to address council for a first time and should begin remarks to council by stating their names and addresses. After everyone who wishes to speak has spoken once, speakers will then be allowed one additional 5-minute presentation. Any additional presentations will only be allowed at the discretion of the chair. Please do not repeat information from your previous presentations and ensure your comments remain focused on the bylaws under consideration this evening. If a written submission has been provided, there is no need to read it as it will have already been seen by council. It can be summarized, ensuring that the comments are pertaining to the bylaws under consideration at this hearing. All members of the audience are asked to be respectful of one another as diverse opinions are expressed. Council wishes to hear everyone's views in an open and impartial forum. Council is here to listen to the public, not to debate the merits of the bylaws. Council may ask clarifying questions. The corporate officer has a binder containing documents and submissions related to the bylaws which council has received and which members of the public are welcome to review. Everyone at the hearing will be provided an opportunity to speak. If necessary, the hearing will continue on a second night. At the conclusion of the public input, council may request further information from staff, which may or may not require an extension of the hearing, or council may close the hearing, after which council should not receive further new information from the public, and the public hearing is being streamed live over the internet and recorded in accordance with Freedom of Information and Protection Privacy Act. And once again, I will now ask the corporate officer to introduce the bylaw. There you go. CO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as noted, the public hearing is for two bylaws. The first is the official community plan amendment bylaw, number 2409. The second is zoning amendment bylaw, number 2413. And I can confirm that advertising for the bylaws and this public hearing has been done in accordance with the section 94 of the community charter. I will turn it over to staff, to the planning staff, to provide a full presentation in regards to both bylaws.
Thank you very much. Krisha, you're up. And here you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to confirm if I'm audible to everyone. Okay. Okay, so starting with the official community plan amendment.
What's the problem? I don't know what you want us to do. This is it. I mean, you turn up the hearing aids. You're gonna have to move to the front because this is as loud as it gets. Unless we start yelling our heads off, this is it. So, sorry, this is it.
Okay. So starting with the official community plan amendment. The amendment is to comply with the provincial legislation requiring local governments to update the official community plans to align with the housing needs of the community and enable more housing built in the right places and faster. The requirement is to get the amendment completed by December 31st, 2025. Just to quickly run through some of the amendments, there are updates to the growth projections, land needs projections, and the projections are to align with the 2024 Housing Needs Report and 2021 Census. There are also updates to the general land use policies to meet the housing goal. Along with the legislative changes, there are minor updates to the development permit area guidelines to exempt certain accessory buildings from requiring a development permit, an issue which we ran into a couple of times last year. And just quickly coming to the zoning bylaw amendments now. The amendment is to focus on creation of a residential mobile home zone to allow mobile homes on individual lots. Currently in the city, we do not have any zone which would allow mobile homes on individual lots. While there is no property currently being rezoned with the zoning amendment, the intention is to have the regulations in place for future rezonings and development processes. Additionally, through this amendment bylaw, we are intending to introduce special regulations on properties on Telmont Place, Douglas Street, and Houston Street to allow mobile homes on as principal use. Just to give some context of what has happened, pre-2015, these properties were zoned as residential mobile home subdivision, but that was changed in 2015 to just have it as modular home subdivision, which made all the current mobile homes on those properties non-conforming and legal but non-conforming, meaning they can continue the use as mobile home, but if they want to replace it or just bring in another mobile home, they are not able to do so. So what staff is proposing right now is to have a special regulation on these properties to have them to continue the use of mobile home as principal use. So in case of fire, God forbid, but in case of fire or if they want to replace the mobile home, they are able to do so. But the properties are currently zoned as low density residential, meaning they can also have a single family or modular home or even just add more density. So that just gives them more options alongside having a mobile home as it is. So yeah, it is just going to be a special regulation for all of those properties. I think it's around 60 properties, and the special regulation will be on all of those properties.
Excellent, thank you. So at this time, I would call upon the public, if anyone has anything they want to say, make an address to these two bylaws that we're talking about. So I'll call for that for a first time. Anybody has anything to say? I'll call for public input for a second time. And I will, sure, please.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands what's being presented here. So if you don't understand, please stand up and ask to have it re-explained.
That, I'll ask the third time. If anybody has anything they'd like to know. Now's the time. We have the professional staff here. Okay, thank you. So the recommendation I have is that the December 16th, 2025 public hearing regarding bylaws 2409 and 2413 is closed, and that the official community plan amendment bylaw 2409, 2025 and zoning amendment bylaw number 2413, 2025 are returned to council for further consideration. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Olgan, any questions on that? All those in favor? Thank you. Return to the agenda. Thank you, Krishna. Appreciate it. Thank you, staff. Thank you. Unfinished business. Bylaws 7.1. Third reading, official community plan amendment bylaw number 2409, 2025. These are the bylaws we just talked about. We have a recommendation that the official community plan amendment bylaw number 2409, 2025 is given a third reading. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Olgan, any questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.2, third reading, zoning amendment bylaw number 2413, 2025. Recommendation that the zoning amendment bylaw 2413, 2025 be amended by replacing PID 00568-638 with PID 005688639 in section 3.d.xix and PID 001559965 with PID 010559965 in section 3EXXI. And please don't ask me to repeat any of that. Councillor Petrosi, seconder, Councillor Olgan. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Last recommendation that the zoning amendment bylaw number 2413, 2025 is given a third reading as amended. Councillor Petrosi. Councillor Baxter. Any questions on that one? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.3. City of Merritt Fire Rescue Department Establishment and Operations Bylaw number 2389, 2025, which is in your package. Give me a second here. We have a recommendation that the City of Merritt Rescue Department Establishment and Operations Bylaw number 2389-2025 be adopted. Councillor Baxter, Councillor Charney, any questions on that one? Councillor Charney.
Under repeal, number 2 hereby is still spelt incorrectly.
What page?
118,
Which one? Number 2?
number 2. Amendments here to is hereby repeal, still spelled wrong.
Okay. How was it supposed to be spelled?
An E. Add an E, yeah, Herbie.
Oh, okay.
Hereby. No problem.
Amended that before, so,
Okay.
The other
Sure
one, the
that-
other ones were fixed.
okay.
Yep. So we've already amended that. We'll just make sure that spelling mistake gets taken care of. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. City of Merritt Fees and Charges Bylaw 2407-2025. Recommendation that the Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 2407-2025 be adopted. Councillor Ogan, Councillor Egan, any questions on that one? It's a big one. Councillor Charney.
I thought everything was hunky-dory last week. And then when I start reading some of the budget things, I'm especially looking at the community service fees and charges schedule. Are we sure that these increases will be keeping up with the increase in equipment that we have to replace, the increase in supplies that we have to replace? Because I'm just looking at public skating at 2016 or 2026, 2027 are the same, and then they only increase by 25 cents in 2028. Now, with inflation, are we, just the question, are we going to be able to keep up with the extra cost of equipment and supplies with this fees and charges schedule?
CEO.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would probably render somewhat of a guess. It can be confirmed by the director if you prefer. But I wouldn't think that we're 100% cost recovering on things. So keeping up is probably keeping up with the status quo is what you're asking, correct?
Yes.
Right. So from a cost of living and inflation perspective, it's in the ballpark. But I believe we've had a number of conversations about whittling these things back over the last little while too. So if there's some interest in talking about these again and moving these sort of in a upwards direction again after moving them back on a few things, we can definitely do that. That said, from a facilities and rec perspective, we can definitely get the director to provide some more input on that. If that makes you, or are you talking about the whole thing in general?
No, there's just some of them that, you know, like we're only increasing 25 cents in 3 years. And I look at the equipment that has to be replaced for capital and all the other things that are going up. I don't know if a 25-cent increase over 3 years is going to cut it.
I believe that what you're attributing cost to versus the rates are probably different subject matter that we aren't 100%, and I don't think we will. Right? When we're talking about small numbers like 25 cents, they're not buying anything, but they're encouraging use, right?
To somewhere we have to have a bit of a balance.
And that's
know.
exactly your prerogative if you want to go back to it and look it all over again. It's fine, don't, you know, we can.
Councillor Etcher.
One issue that I have with some of the water rates is when you have a home with a suite, they're paying 75% above. Last year, I feel like we pushed this through very quickly. I agree that there should maybe be an increase, but 75% over one suite where it could be one person in one bedroom in a whole home. You may have 4 people living upstairs and one single person in one suite, and we're basically having like a 75% extra surcharge. I could understand even 50 or 25%, but it just seems, I think it's unreasonable. So I don't agree with it.
CEO, even though we're talking about this tonight, we still can amend this through budget process, could we not? if we felt we had the need to.
Pardon me, thank you, Worship. If you pass this now and wanted to go back to it later, we would have to reestablish it later.
Okay.
Again and pass it again, I believe, correct? Rescind it and go again, right?
So,
At this point, if you would like these fees, the whole bylaw to take effect as of January 1st, because that's what will happen with this bylaw. Sorry.
I think that must be on the other end.
Yeah, it's somebody coming in on here. So with this bylaw, it's our fees and charges bylaw. It's at adoption right now. It's set to take effect as of January 1st. All of the rates will be attributed for next year. If you would like us to review these, but we can bring this back to you can adopt it tonight. We can bring this back to the policy committee in January for further review and amend some of the fees if you'd like in January for next year. So we can look at it for the following year. We can look at it for next year. You can repeal third reading at this point and change it if you'd like. There are options that are available.
So right now we've got the recommendation out that the fees and charge amendment bylaw be adopted. Have I got that moved and seconded? Yes.
Yes, it is
Yeah, okay.
moved and seconded.
So I'm just gonna call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Looks like it passes. City of Merit, 2025-2029 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 2414-2025. We have a recommendation that the City of Merit 2025-2029 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 2414-2025 be adopted. Councilor Petrosi? Councilor Holden? Any questions on this one? Councilor Etchart and Councilor Charney, you both have your mics on. Thank you. Any questions on this one? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. New business 8.1 age-friendly and accessibility plan to be introduced by Director of Corporate Services and presented by Kate Milne, Cardia Health. CO. Somebody online? There we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City of Merit has, in the past 6 months, been working with Kate. Thank you, Your Worship. The City of Merit has been working with Kate Milne from Cardia Health in the past 6 months to develop a City of Merit accessibility plan. It is being presented this evening by Kate virtually. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kate to introduce the plan.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council and staff. I'm just going to go through some of the background on the report and some of the findings. So the report that we've been working on is essentially a roadmap document for the next 5 years with recommendations to help Merit become more accessible and remove barriers wherever possible. So I wanted to explain how we got to this report that's been submitted and what the report structure is. So the report's intended to be read in its entirety, but there's also sections that can be read as standalone pieces. So we started with some background and context for the accessibility plan, used some guiding frameworks, and I'll be talking a little bit more about those and why we used those frameworks. I've included the information about our community engagement, including some in-person engagement in the City of Merit. And from that, we created 5 strategic directions. So 5 areas that the city could really focus on, along with recommendations in each of those areas. And then knowing that in many communities, when you receive a plan like this, it's a lot of information. It's a big plan with a lot of recommendations attached. And so there is a section also on suggestions around implementation, how you could go about implementing and prioritizing some of those recommendations. And then also some information around evaluation and monitoring. So the plan was really developed. We started off by doing a context review, or some people would call this an environmental scan, where we looked at municipal documents, but also regional documents and federal documents. And from there, developed a survey. So there was an online and in-person version of the survey, and also did some virtual as well as in-person interviewing, focus groups. There was an open house, and I spent a week in Merritt meeting with folks. So not only members of the public, but service providers, city staff. I met with members of the Indigenous community. And so we met with a number of different folks during the process. So we took all of those results, the context review, all of the feedback and the narratives that we heard, and we sorted those by the 8 age-friendly dimensions, which just make sorting that narrative information a little bit easier in terms of looking at different themes. So those 8 areas include outdoor spaces, which is typically the biggest area in terms of what people are interested in and talk about. So that can include things like sidewalks and curb letdowns and seating and pathways. We also looked at transportation. That can be public transportation, that can be ride share, it can be parking. It's a number of different areas in terms of transportation. Housing, social participation, so how people feel that they're able to participate in their community, respect, inclusion, and cultural safety, civic engagement and employment. So that's everything from the ability to get out and vote. Can people participate in on committees? Can they access city services? Communication and information. This is also always a big topic, how people are receiving information, where they're looking for information, where there are, possible disconnects in terms of information, and then community and health services. So clearly some of these areas are not within the city's remit directly, but the city does have influence over certain things. So for example, transportation, it might be partnering or, providing information about transportation. Then we use these guiding frameworks. So just really a way to look at all of this information. What should be guiding how the analysis is done of all of this information, and when it's all put into these 8 different buckets. And of course, the age-friendly dimensions provide that easy way to theme all of the information, but we also took a social determinants of health lens, and that's just sort of zooming out and looking at some of the demographic information and social information that might have an impact on what we're looking at. We also, of course, use the BC Accessibility Act and then universal design principles, which is just part of accessibility planning. And those 5 strategic directions came out of all of this information. So what are the areas that would provide Merritt maybe the best place to focus on over the next 5 years? Of course, from that outdoor spaces and buildings, there was a lot of discussion about accessible spaces and infrastructure. So that was a key area. Also advancing social inclusion and accessibility through programs and services. So maybe just thinking about some extensions of programs and services, improving communication and awareness of programs. There's a section specifically on Indigenous accessibility and cultural inclusion. And then finally, just really coordinating support around housing and transportation. So clearly the city's already doing work in all of these areas. So we're making recommendations in different ways in each of these areas. And what I mean by that is in those recommendations, we are making some recommendations around sort of quick wins. What are some ways in which you can make some changes that are more low cost and practical and maybe provide a little bit of momentum, particularly for your accessibility committee to see some things that they might, be able to move forward within 0 to 18 months. There are near-term actions, so things that would take a little bit longer, maybe 18 months to 3 years. So these might be different tools or pilots or more modest projects. And then finally, those bigger, more aspirational or things that might take more resources and staff time, those are system and policy shifts, and those would take place over 3 to 5 years. And again, I mentioned that idea of implementation and adding that section into the report. And so one of the things that I recommended was just a very simple decision-making matrix where you could take the recommendations and put them on a ranking table and say, okay, well, which recommendations, A, are we interested in moving forward? And B, do we have the resources, capacity, staff time, budget, that sort of thing to do? And you would have a number for each one of those and go through and rank them and decide which ones you want to start with or pick off, particularly around getting some of those quick wins going. And with that understanding, who's going to lead what in every city, of course, and particularly in smaller communities, resources are an issue, staff time is an issue. So the idea is not to be exhaustive in these recommendations, but really to have the city have some ideas of how you could make changes that would be meaningful. So developing timelines within that information. So in other words, if you're doing a recommendation that's more around system and policy that would take 3 to 5 years, what are the timelines to get to that? And then those quick wins, as I said, implementing some of those and really importantly, providing or looking at some indicators in advance. So getting ready to measure what you're doing before you even put anything into place, because the last piece of the report is around evaluation and monitoring. So not only making sure that you're setting out to do what you plan or what's being decided upon in the decision-making matrix or within the report, but then also how is that going? Are you actually achieving the goals that you're setting out to achieve? And so that monitoring and evaluation, part of the BC Accessibility Act is providing some sort of simple feedback mechanism for the public. So it could just be as simple as having a dedicated email or an aliased email address that would go to a staff member, and there's just an ongoing collection of accessibility feedback from the community. And that might be something that you use to do the monitoring over time or build that into your evaluation. But the idea again is for it to be iterative and done regularly. And then updating those priorities as circumstances and funding changes, hopefully, or in a positive way. So the next steps for the plan are really the best practice that is always recommended is to post the plan publicly when it's been accepted by council. highlighting maybe the role of that accessibility advisory committee because they're doing some great work and supporting this work. And then inviting that regular feedback that's part of the BC Accessibility Plan, or the BC Accessibility Act. So that's the plan in a nutshell. And just wondering if there's any questions on the plan or the summary or the presentation.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? Councillor Egan.
No, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. Very informative. I'm also, a couple of questions. I'm wondering if you use the guidelines presented by somebody like Rick Hansen, who's done worldwide travel and on accessibility. And the other thing I was wondering is that have you, I understand the presentation is for something that we have to think about for the future, but have you tied any kind of cost to this?
Yeah, those are both great questions. The question about the Rick Hansen piece, that's a very specific assessment that you would have somebody come in and do, in terms of infrastructure and buildings. And you would have somebody with a Rick Hansen certification to do that. That's sort of the next step going forward. This is a bit more of a broad view of the different areas under both that age-friendly and accessibility piece. But part of the recommendations within the report are universal design standards, and that's part of that, what you would see in the Rick Hansen accessibility assessment as well. And the piece about costing that came up, and I would turn that over probably to Linda, Rick, if that's okay. Because we've had that discussion, and I think she might be better to speak to that.
Okay, one more question before we turn it over to Linda. When you did this survey, does this apply to the whole community, or are we talking about major routes, or I'm not sure exactly how far it's extended?
Yeah, so it applied to the community. It was residents of Merritt. It was put out to all residents, not specifically to one group. It was just a general, what we would call a convenience sample. So we invited people to participate in the survey, both online, and we provided paper copies at different locations throughout the city as well.
And were there certain areas in town that were specifically noted that need more attention?
Can you tell me specifically in what, like maybe just give me a bit more context? Or do you mean in terms of
making things more accessible? Whether it be sidewalks for wheelchairs, lighting, buzzers for when the lights are green and red, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so those kind of things came up definitely in the community engagement, and that's been categorized within the report in those different 8 areas. So things like in outdoor spaces and buildings, we talked about walkability, the downtown area, some of the things that came up around sidewalks, curb letdowns, some damage, I guess, that's happened in terms of weather. We talked about snow clearance, ice, more seating in certain areas. We also went through, as I said, in each one of those areas. So in transportation, a lot of people talked about having concerns about more taxi service that is wheelchair accessible. People also talked about things that were positive, though, that the transportation, for example, in Merritt is actually pretty good for the size of the town. There was conversation about accessible and affordable housing, about wanting more programs available for specific groups. Yeah, so within the report, there's a lot of information in different areas in terms of accessibility. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, that's getting there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
No problem.
Seal?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this plan is the first step in creating a more accessible community. What we envision going forward is for council to have strategic meetings with the accessibility committee, identify what are their priorities in the near term, the long term, what they would like to see in the next year based on some of the recommendations. And at that point, we would be able to cost and I've incorporate things into budgets as we're going forward. This plan doesn't lay out what everything would cost because things change year over year. And it also depends on what council's priorities are.
Councillor Logan?
Thank you. So the plan itself, it's strong, it's practical. I think that is well aligned with best practices. My concern is more about the implementation. I know that this is a process and we are in the first steps right now, but I feel that there is this report lacks of ownership. Who is doing what? So there are so many action items in the report. So I just want to make sure that at some point we address who is going to be taking ownership of those specific responsibilities. That's the part that I don't see in the presentation. Thank you.
And if I might, I probably would say to you that probably would fall to the H-Friendly and Accessibility Committee to take that on, because that's pretty much their ballpark, is to take this plan, read it, and implement. You can actually see some of the things that the committee has already done. For example, the ability for people to sit at these meetings, because we had a lady here who was unable to stand and she had to hold on to the podium. So it was suggested by the Accessibility Committee that we do this. We went out with the gentleman in the wheelchair, showing us all the spots in town, and I think we started working on those spots that grinding those down at very little cost. But so I think that's the accessibility group would be the ones that would lead this charge, and I would expect that's probably exactly what they'd want to do. So I would say if you had to hold a lens to this, the accessibility group probably will read this inside and out and make sure almost all of it happens. Buttle?
Yeah, no, I just want to add that, yes, I think there is a lot of work that to be done, and they have started doing that work. So, for example, we have not had people in the audience that they were not unable to hear what we were talking. So that's something that we need to address in the future, so that if that happens, so how are we going to address that situation? Something to think about it.
We also have a lady on the committee that is blind and she cannot find her button to push it. So we have to put something there to allow her to get to her button without having to rely on somebody beside her. So when you're capable and able to move around, it doesn't affect you much until all of a sudden you're put in that position, and then it does. So I know I can tell you straight out, the Accessibility Committee is anxious to get to this stuff. Councillor Etchart.
Thank you for the information, Catherine. I know that this is a big concern because at UBCM a few years ago, there was somebody who did a presentation on accessibility, and just everything from being able to access certain restaurants where sometimes the accessibility was through the back kitchen beside the garbage dumpster. I mean, this is a concern for a lot of people, but so retrofitting so many things from store entrances and wider doors and everything like that. Is there a current grant that you know of or anything where we can promote this for retrofit for businesses, for people who could benefit from this that you know of? Or
Yeah, so maybe I'll address both questions. Just in terms of the first question around the lead or who is doing what, within the report for each recommendation, there is a recommended lead as well as partners. So if there's any community service organizations or partners who are potentially already doing some of this work that can be leveraged, or there are groups that you could collaborate with, those have been identified throughout the report. In terms of grant funding, that's also something that we've put throughout the report. Wherever there is something in terms of opportunity, that is also included within the recommendations. So absolutely, there are a number of different grant programs that, unfortunately change year to year, but the ones that are available now have been identified throughout the report as well.
thank you.
Councillor Cherney.
Thank you, Catherine, for the report. I really enjoyed reading it. And what I really liked about the report was you just didn't leave us dangling. You've who's the lead, who are the key partners, the resources and linkages, examples, progress indicators. I think that's really important for the age-friendly accessibility committee, so that they're not trying to guess at who can help us with that. You've done the groundwork for them. So I think that's really important. Just a matter of interest, how many people participated in the survey?
Yeah, it was interesting. This was a lower number than we typically would have. There were only 68 survey respondents, but we did have 9 focus groups. We had 15 one-to-one interviews. So although the survey response was definitely lower than we would have liked, I think that's a data point in itself that with all of the effort to get the information about the survey out, with the paper survey at different locations, with the digital survey available, we still had a low response. And that in itself tells us that maybe that there's an issue with communication in terms of some of these projects. So it's we wish it would be higher, but I think again, we can learn from it.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Petrosi.
Thank you, Catherine, for the presentation. Just wanted to speak to improving communication and awareness of programs and services. What specific programs and services were mentioned? If you can expand on that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think what we typically hear, and Merritt was no exception. This is I think the 11th community that I've done a project like this in, is that there's a disconnect where the city will say, we've put out information in 5 different ways. We've tried online, we've tried on social media, we've tried putting out paper copies of posters, and people will still say, I didn't see that anywhere. I didn't see that information that I was looking for. For example, for our open house, we felt like we had posters out and we had information out on social media, and the city had put it out on their website, and we went through service providers to try to get them to get the word out. And yet many people said, I didn't know this was happening. I just found out 2 hours ago that this was happening. So I think it's a general sense of communication, not specific to services. I mean, of course, when I'm out in the community, because I've been talking to a lot of service providers, somebody will say, well, I really wish we had this. And because I've just talked to some service providers, I'll say, oh, I actually can connect you with someone who's doing that work. So for example, the Better at Home program, there were people who said, oh, wow, I didn't know that was in our community. It's a great program in Merritt, a very supportive program, and yet there were people who weren't aware of it. So again, they're doing a lot of great work. That information is out there in a number of different ways, but it's just being missed. So understanding, I suppose, where people are looking for information is probably the first priority.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kate? Thank you for all the work, Kate. Appreciate it. Appreciate the presentation and the report. Our group will definitely use that as we move forward. And thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Council.
You bet. Thank you very much. We have a recommendation that Council adopt the 2025 City of Merritt Accessibility Plan. Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Ogun, any other questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Council. 8.2 temporary use permit, 2751 Nickel Avenue. We have 3 recommendations. I'll read all 3 out. We have recommendation that Council direct staff to issue the temporary use permit for 2751 Nickel Avenue for a community care facility. Major conditional on satisfactory completion and addressing of all recommendations and concerns for actions as identified by the Interior Health Services, City of Merritt building officials, and City of Merritt Fire Chief in the attached in referral comments, or that Council direct staff to deny the temporary use permit for 2751 Nicola Avenue for a community care facility major, or that Council direct staff to not approve the temporary use permit for 2751 Nicola Avenue for a community care facility major and to bring back further information to a future meeting for review and direction. Over to council. Well, we have three recommendations. If somebody wants to remove a recommendation, we can do that. Have three of them. Or do you want to discuss it first and then move a recommendation? It all depends what you want to do. Okay, let's have a motion.
To have the motion that we do use the temporary use permit on 2751 for the community care facility. Addressing all the recommendations and concerns for actions as identified by the Interior Health Services, City of Merritt building officials, and City of Merritt Fire Chief, and attached in referral comments.
We have a seconder. Seconder, discussion. Councillor Baxter.
I live in this neighborhood and I talked to a lot of people in the last week, and there's been a big consensus that we do need some type of facility to help people break the addiction. I wouldn't want it in my neighborhood, but if it helps people that are Merritt taxpayers, Merritt citizens, children of Merritt, I think it's beneficial if we actually let them go until they can find a facility and purchase one somewhere else in the city.
Councillor Charney.
Nicola Valley Enhanced Supportive Recovery has 5 beds, and Adults with Addiction Supportive Housing in Merritt has 6 beds. So that's 11 beds that we currently have, and they have a comprehensive program. We have Logan Lake that is 30 minutes away, and there are a lot of beds there that are available. And and especially since this facility is directly across from a low barrier facility, I don't think I could recommend having this facility in that location.
Thank you. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. I kind of agree with Councillor Charney in the sense that I'm still not convinced that these services are not already provided by other community services that we have in the community already.
Councillor Richard.
I tend to agree with what Councillor Baxter was saying because we have the shelter that's there. We have a large population and a large problem. The shelter was a concern when it opened up for a lot of residents because the last one that we had near the A&W area had a lot of people spilled out onto the ground and a lot of problems. This one seems to be managed better, less concerns from the residents that I've talked to recently. And I think we just need to try at least to do something to offer support, kind of a graduated program. We did have the presentation recently, and there's plans, it's measured, it's controlled. And right now, I think the Merritt Lodge is also providing services, at least on the food preparation side. I could be wrong, but
that's in the package.
Yeah, I think that was in the package, but we've had a lot of information that's come through. So, I mean, there's concerns, but we also have to do something positive to help this along as well. And if it's being managed well, and you know, we have to revisit it in a year and a half as well.
Councillor Rogan, first time.
Thank you. So there are different things that we need to consider here. So I feel that there is a need for that organization. Do they have the best location? No. And that's why they are applying for this TUP. That's the intent of a TUP. So it's going to be a temporary permit for 18 months. I am in favor, you know, of recommending for approval this TUP as long as all the recommendations from planning, from fire, from building department, from interior health are met. So I wouldn't have any issues.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter again.
I hear Councillor Charney say that there's 11 beds, but we're in a toxic drug crisis. There's kids in high school using drugs. And if we have this type of facility, maybe we can help students, we can help people that are in our community. I think if we give a temporary use permit to this, we are actually helping some of our citizens.
Councilor Petrosi.
So I just want to speak to Logan Lake. Are we talking Vision Quest? Is that?
Yes.
And they are supposedly running some vacant beds. I couldn't give you any numbers. I don't know if there are any.
They have 80 beds, but very rarely are they full.
Right.
Now, the difference between Vision Quest and any other, because I went on a tour, the difference is the fact that people that are at KRCC that are serving their sentences can actually serve their sentence at this facility. There is some people who do not want to be in this facility with people who are serving time for crime. So there's a lot of empty beds there usually. It's a very well-run area. It really is, but pretty much 50% of the beds are empty. And there has been some issues with some of the prisoners walking away because it's not a lockup situation. You're there on your good graces.
Right.
But it has helped, but it's also had some disasters. So just like anything else.
Well, I see addictions are definitely on the increase, and it is an 18-month temporary permit. So we revisit it after the 18 months. I would say yes towards approving that.
So to be the fly in the ointment here, the only thing that I have concern about is the fact that this is not zoned right now for it at all. And when we're talking about recovery, what is the next step after the recovery starts? Because we don't have any kind of long-term services close to us or wrap around. And I mean, I've had some experience with a family member that has gone through this, and it goes through the transition and then goes through, there's really no wraparound services after 90 days, gets back into it again, and we go through the whole thing again. I mean, it's just that I would like to see a bigger plan on what the next steps after recovery would be. And I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that could tell me. I'm looking at you, Jill. So, anyways, that's where I'm at. So we have a recommendation. We've gone with recommendation number 1. Any other comments or questions on that? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. So, Seal, not going to put you on the spot here, but so the next steps would be working with the groups that have been mentioned in here to get the building to be conforming.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. I would expect it to take a little bit of time based on what I read in all of the comments and the things that would have to be done. And something to think about as well, within the interior health comments was they alluded to some duplication that needed to be brought into this as well as far as their concerns. But yes, if they get the building into shape from the building officials, fire code type stuff, and we address interior health concerns, which largely were some infrastructure upgrades along the highway as well. There's going to be a significant investment in bringing this building and this location up to par based on that particular choice of motion and all the things that went into that.
Okay.
So I don't think we're going to see that change within the next month. It's going to take them a little bit of time to organize and determine what steps they can and can't take. And we may hear more about this in the future.
Thank you. 8.3, presentation of the draft 2026-2030 financial plan. I got a big mark through it. We have a recommendation that council receive the report as presentation on the draft 2026-2030 financial plan for information and discussion purposes. Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Egan. Discussion. Anybody have anything that they've seen? CFO, so this is basically a preamble to what's coming as far as budget. This is basically, is this what this is to a certain degree? Is this what we're looking at here? CFO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is coming out of the Audit and Finance Committee, where we discussed the merging of last year's 2 budget meetings into 1 meeting. So this is a presentation that you'll either decide to proceed with public input or you'll issue direction on changes.
Council. Councilor Charney.
I just want to know, is there going to be a time when we can talk in depth to all of this? Or are we just approving this generally and then we get into the in-depth nitty gritty later?
So you'll,
Yes,
Receive for information.
yes, just for information. only.
there'll either be direction to proceed with scheduling public input in terms of an open house, or there'll be direction to staff in terms of what follow-ups you need, what services you'd like to discuss, things of that nature. So this is up to council to make that decision after tonight.
It's not just for information. Limited.
Although it's for information only, I mean, we're receiving it for information. We're not approving this tonight. We're just receiving it for information. This is for you to go over, and then, I mean, if you have questions for staff,
You can do it next.
we can do it. You can do that. Doesn't even have to be a meeting. We can discuss that, and we're definitely going to have way more budget discussion than this.
Okay.
Way more. Of course we are.
Okay, good.
There's
I have
lots of
a lot
things
questions.
that we have to talk about. So, Councilor Rogan.
Thank you. So, I'm not sure if council had the opportunity to compare the financial plan presented 3 years ago with this financial plan. So we can see the big difference. At that time, we were living on financial budget, and now I think we have options. So there, it's getting better. So we are not there yet. So there's still a lot of work to do. So it has not been easy for us to make decisions such as the increase of the fees and services, the increase in the property taxes, but I can see the results in this financial. So gradually, we are putting aside money. We are able to not to depend on reserves. So I see the positive trend, and I would like to continue this trend in these financials. Thank you.
Councilor Egan.
I agree with you, Councillor Hogan. But I would still like to, I'd like to have a look at the plan from 3 years ago as well, so I can see for myself. I'm sure I can find it if I dig deep. But if somebody has one handier, I would appreciate a copy of it. And I would also like to, I don't know that we can actually really make too many comments on this without having our first budget meeting.
It's no problem. Councilor Etchart.
So question, I know that we just made the adjustment with some of the costs that we had from 2025, but comparing 2024 to 2025, would you say that we've ended up in a reasonable shape? Considering that there was some added costs that we had to put into the adjustment for the 2025-29 bylaw adjustment tonight. Do you think with the changes, do you forecast much that we've estimated fairly close?
We can definitely come back to this in a second, but I just want to clarify for council. The directors are here tonight to discuss their operations and their capital. The intention was that you would have an opportunity to discuss each of their areas and go through this presentation with them. So that was the intention tonight. I'm not sure. Doesn't seem like that's clear.
Councilor Etchart, you were on.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's fine.
Councilor Baxter.
I think we should hear from each of the directors. So that they can just go through the plans that we can go into after tonight, have a clear image of how our financial plan is going to go forward.
So that was the intention. I was going to open with commentary on where we were last year in terms of the 2026 tax rate and how we get to where we are this year.
Let's go in that direction.
Each director was going to discuss their portfolios, and then we were going to wrap up in the conclusion. Councillor Etchart, I'll come back to your question now that we've had a chance to clarify that, because I don't think that was clear. So the last 2 years have been digging out of a financial hole. So I consider this to be the inflection point where we are now even. And even allows you to start making decisions and having a little bit of choice as it relates to operations and capital. So the last 2 years where, I talk about some of the things that have been done in the introduction. Property taxation increases. We updated the fees and charges bylaw for the first time in a decade. We sourced a lot of cost savings. We reviewed and decisioned service levels and sponsorship levels as it relates to permissive tax exemptions, grant and aid budgets, etc. We identified where advocacy is required, so UBCM resolutions for transit, discussions with the TNRD, etc. We have a new collective bargaining agreement creating certainty for our workforce costs for the next 4 years. And we're starting to plan for capital for a longer term planning horizon such that we can make funding decisions today and service for a future 10 plus years down the road. So that's what's been progressed over the last 2 years to get to the point where now you can start making some choices and they don't feel as forced as it is when you're trying to dig out of a hole. So that was the introduction. I can certainly go through the tax rate, but it would be helpful for you to see that up front to let you know that, yes, you've heard about some of the risks and challenges in terms of BC assessments, revaluation of pipelines in the community. You've heard about some of the RCMP inflationary costs, but you haven't yet heard how we're trying to mitigate that and stay within a targeted range for next year's tax rate. So I had planned to do that and then turn things over to each director. If you'd like me to proceed.
So I'll probably let the public know this is going to be pretty dry, probably for the next hour or two. If you're interested in the budget, here we go. We're off.
Okay. So last year we had premised a 2026 municipal tax increase of 6.9%. So that's where we were in last year's plan. You've heard about the revaluation of pipelines across the province. Our assessed value went down by 28%. Class 2 being utilities is a capped rate across the province, which means that we have no inability to pass that cost on to other utility ratepayers in the community. Should I wait?
Okay.
So ultimately that cost gets passed on to residents and businesses. Now we have had some conversation with provincial government officials to try and mitigate that. So we've proposed revisiting provincially the cap on class 2 properties with our MLA, Honorable Tony Luck. And we've also discussed whether we can add City of Merritt to the exception list in that regulation. So those are two mitigating strategies in which the mayor, the CAO, and I have discussed with provincial government to try and mitigate. As it stands today, based on what we know, there's going to be a 0.6% tax increase related to that change if left unmitigated. I know council's seen some of the RCMP inflationary costs on a per detachment member. So here's the impact on the tax rate. Last year, they told us that 2026 would have a 2% inflation over 2025. Now we're up to 6.6. So that's a 0.9% tax increase related to maintaining the current level of service in the detachment. So those two things I would consider external factors to the city, which brings us to 8.4%. The next 4 items, trying to walk through how we get to where we are internal type requests that council can consider. So I won't go into details on each of these right now because you'll get a chance to discuss them with the director. The GIS FTE request will come up in the infrastructure section. In the corporate services section, you'll have an opportunity to discuss the SharePoint project. In the development services leadership absence, the CAO will be discussing the development services projects required next year. And then in terms of tourism funding, this conversation's been underway with council and staff over the last 2 years in terms of TNV, developing that agreement. As part of the budgeting process, we need direction on the funding level that will be associated with that agreement that needs to be developed. All of those things combined would leave us at 11% if left unmitigated. One of the biggest strategies we're trying to use for mitigation is to time our fleet deliveries and associated debt payments to try and manage some of the costs associated with it and make sure that we have realistic assumptions on what's possible in today's procurement environment. So several of these units, including Engine 2 and the solid waste trucks, have been in development for the last number of years. And so this is trying to adjust for those more realistic timing for delivery. So that's a material savings on our tax rate for next year. So pushing Engine 2 and the solid waste truck into Q4 helps save 3.5% on the municipal tax rate. Tonight, we've adopted the fees and charges bylaw, and that has positive implications for our municipal tax rate. So there is some solid waste adjustments that are included in that, and that helps support some of the debt payments that will be added over the next few years for that fleet renewal. On the property insurance side, this is savings in relation to what was actually included in last year's plan. So as council will recall, our premiums were up 300% and our deductibles were up 900% post-flood. So we took action in 2025 to move our insurance to another provider. 0.6 is our savings in terms of what we had built into last year's plan. Our previous provider had quoted an additional amount that would have been about a 2% tax increase for the Middlesbrough Bridge. So as part of moving our insurance to another provider, we were able to get that coverage for the Middlesbrough Bridge included. That cost was never in last year's plan, so this savings is actually over 2% in actuality, 0.6 if you're just comparing against last year's bylaw. We've got some savings in our community services department in terms of wages for next year. So the mechanical room upgrades that were initially premised for 2025 have shifted to 2026. That extended shutdown will mean that some of our workers may be furloughed for a period of time and that we won't be using our casual workforce because the pool won't be operational for approximately 2 months. So that savings is helping to support us getting to about a 4.5% tax rate for next year.
Kevin, I have a question for you. Talking about the RCMP, we know that in the last 2 years, we had to have that retroactive situation. Is this the final year for it, or was last year the final year? I've kind of lost track.
So we did send the check for the $500,000, and there may be additional retroactive changes that we get notified, but the big lump sum was paid. Actually, it would have been this year, so it would have been by the end of March in 2025.
Okay. We're talking about the give me a second, my brain is a little fuzzy tonight, sorry. The BC assessment with the pipeline situation. There's a lot of conversations going on with TNRD and several other communities that are going to be affected, such as we are, some a lot worse than we are. First of all, I want to preface this by the fact that this is not the pipeline situation. They have nothing to do with this. This is completely BC assessment and the government wanting to devalue this land that the pipeline runs under. And we are basically left with no choices but to do whatever they choose to do with. So there is quite a swell of support trying to get them to put this off a year. So communities like ours or Clearwater is going to be losing 11% of their tax base because of this. And the other thing is the conversation of a new pipeline coming from Alberta to BC coast. We want the Alberta government to be very aware of the fact of what happens with the land once it's, first of all, it came in with a lot of promise. Here you go, here's some money, and millions of dollars worth of profit runs through that pipeline every single day. To devalue the land it's on is, it's terrible. It's a bad idea, and it doesn't give us what was promised. So there's a possibility that with the groundswell that's happening with this right now, with all levels of government, we probably could see this delayed for a year. It's possible. I won't say it will be. It's possible. And sitting at TNRD last week, I sent you a little bit of something, but I haven't seen the final. They are, for some strange reason, they have picked us out of a group, and we're seeing a quite substantial tax increase, almost 10%. So not sure why. Once that arrives, I think we can dissect that. So there's an issue there that we have no control over at this point in time. So I just wanted to know where we were on the RCMP repayment thing. So thank you.
So all told,
Oh, sorry, Councillor Trent.
I just have a a very minor question. With the buyouts with the flood, and I don't know how many properties are total buyout, but how will that affect taxes? Because you're now not going to get property taxes from X number of residents. Is it just minor now, or how will that affect?
So we won't see the completed roll until December 31st. So at this stage, I don't know what the assessed values in the community look like. So we're premising a budget based on the actual operational and capital needs for the municipality without being able to necessarily convert that into class rates
Okay.
based on assessed values. So that will come in the new year, but they aren't required to publish until the end of the year.
Okay.
Sure.
So all told, the 4.5% for next year, at least on the municipal side, the remaining elements of our tax base to be determined in terms of TNRD is about a $7.98 increase for the average homeowner in the municipality. That's what that translates to. Any questions that aren't specific to the project requests that you'll discuss with the directors?
Questions may arise as we go through it, most likely.
Okay. So before I turn things over to the fire chief, we do have a section that discusses some of the lumpiness in our 5-year profile. So when the ladder truck arrives, particularly in 2030, there's going to be an outsized municipal tax increase. So we do have the option to consider smoothing that over the next 5 years. So if we average out the budgetary requirements across the plan, we could consider increases of 4.9% annually, trying to buffer the greater than 7% that's coming in 2030 when those debt payments start. So that is presented in the package as an option for council to consider as to whether you want to take that for public input at the open house.
You know,
Any questions on that piece?
I think anything that we can put out to the public at the open house probably should be in there so people can digest it. I found what we did last year with all the options and everybody there, public was quite happy for what happened. So I think the more information we can give, whether they choose to assimilate it or not, is the best for us at this point. So, okay. Any other questions, council? On to the chief.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I don't know, I have some speaking notes for myself. I made some copies. I don't know if you want me to distribute them just so you can follow along.
Sure, please.
So a little bit about our current situation, our current strength in the fire department. So we currently have 36 members, which is a combination of career staff, work experience firefighters, and paid on call firefighters. Our full complement is 40 firefighters. That's what we would strive to have. With the recruitment and retention concerns that are across Canada, we experience them as well. So you'll see down the road there we have some goals for 2026, which one of the main ones includes recruitment and retention. You'll see a campaign come out in January, a recruiting campaign trying to secure paid on call firefighters. Now that you have this, I guess on the second page, you can see our fire department organization. You can see the split between paid on call staff, which respond on pager, versus career staff. Majority of our department and the real backbone of our department is the paid on call firefighters in our community. Now, as far as the expectation, we believe that the public's expectation of our service is a one call all hazards emergency response agency, and the level of service is set by council. And it's based on our ability to respond, budget allocations, and in many cases, we enter into many contractual agreements as well, which limits that. we have quite a large portfolio of different response from structure fires, motor vehicle incidents. First responder medical calls are always fluctuate around 48 to 50% of our annual call volume. We go to lots of hazardous materials type of calls, whether it's natural gas release or calls like that. And then we're in the community doing public education, inspection of public buildings. We run a juvenile fire setter program, and then there is a bylaw enforcement component to it as well. We always say no call too small, and it's kind of the flavor of today's society. We get a lot of calls for public assists, actually a growing amount. As an example, we had a family whose infant was locked inside their residence, and so the call came through 911. We had to force entry into that occupancy so that they could reconnect with their infant child. But we find more and more we're getting a lot more public assist calls, and I think that's kind of the flavor across all our partnering agencies as well, which is influenced in our rising call volume. So as of today, we have responded to 1,215 calls in the community. Last year, we ended the season with 1,145 calls total. So we're growing exponentially every year. We anticipate we're on track to respond to about 1,280 calls for service this year. It has slowed down in the last week, and a lot of it is weather dependent, less motor vehicle accidents, things like that. But things that were somewhat out of our control this year is we had many large fires. If you remember the condos, Comfort Inn, Pine Street, those are also long duration calls. And then we had many incendiary fires. We'll call them arson fires this year, suspects to be identified type of situation, which upped the call volume specifically in 2025. Now, the one thing when we talk about our operational budget, we are up, our costs are up about 1.7%. But when we go back to, and it's pretty much all in one line item, and that is the paid on call remuneration, or remuneration of paid on call firefighters. And there's a few reasons for that. One, there was a step increase in the remuneration in 2025. And I just mentioned the greater call volume, extended duration incidents, but we also went to 2 provincial deployments, and there's a lot of offsetting revenue that is accounted for in that one line item. So for instance, we have TNRD agreement, Cooksbury Band, Indian Band, Fire Protection Agreement, EMBC Road Rescue, which we received cost recovery. There was cost recovery for our standby for the music festival. Provincial deployment, as an example, brought in about $85,000 in offsetting revenue. There's other things that some are new to us. We now are charging for instructor fees. So some of our instructors have gone to neighboring fire departments to teach things like first responder and different courses like that. And now we're recovering those costs and actually making a little bit of revenue. There's also reinspection fees, false alarm fees, and then the confined fire permits. And then I know there are some invoices out there for some of the larger fires that we have billed to try to recoup or cost recover for our services. Sorry, I just need to catch up to myself. The one thing I want to talk about is the value of our paid on call firefighters, because that's where we've seen the greatest increase in our operational costs. This year, response hours, we've put in 6,152 hours of training. We put in over 9,000 hours of training. And the paid on call firefighters, which is your paid on call firefighters, your career staff, and the work experience firefighters, have put in a grand total of 144,000 hours of standby after hours and on weekends, which is not remunerated. So there's a huge value in our paid on call system and a need to maintain that so that our costs don't overinflate. Every career member and every paid on-call member and work experience firefighter must commit to 2,216 hours of standby, along with their platoon, which is in a rotation of every 1 and every 3rd week. So, and that's when we move to our priorities for 2026. I've used the same slogan for many years, but I call it fueling the machine. So in order for our department to operate, we need to commit to the recruitment and retention of our paid on-call firefighters, because that is the most cost-effective means of providing service. We need to make sure our firefighters are healthy, that we have our critical incident stress management program is up and running, and that we're taking all precautions against firefighter cancers, that we're providing them with the basic needs. That's their protective clothing, the training and the equipment that they need to do their job. We need to support the work experience program, because that really shoulders a lot of the extra weight in our department. And truly that allows us to provide the first responder medical care in our community. They are shouldering the majority of that commitment. We need to continue to promote and train our fire officers. Even more so now, we're participating routinely in provincial deployments. And then we need to maintain our full service designation, because feel for a community our size, we're offering a pretty high level of service because of that. And so the commitment council's made to fund our training programs and things like that, and our ability to do a lot of these certifications in-house has allowed us to maintain that level. Overall community wellness, things we want to work on next year, of course, the structure protection program, wildfire structure protection program. We want to get ahead of the curve. If ever we are impinged or threatened by a wildfire that's potentially could be threatening structures, we'd like to have this plan behind us, which essentially gives us the tools and a plan to address a fire coming into our community. The last number of years, our fire life safety education program has been maybe not at the forefront where it should be, and we plan to get back into schools in the community. We have firefighters that are becoming certified as fire life safety educators, allowing us to do that. Community outreach, and that's just the good stuff, and that's teaching CPR in the high school to students and things like that. And then pre-incident planning, and that's really just around the hazards that are in our community. I know in talking about the aerial ladder, talked about some of the merit is growing vertically. And so that requires us to address our firefighting tactics in a different way. A lot of it is around pre-fire planning to ensure that we're ready to address that kind of new challenge to us, working in a low-rise building, so to speak. For us, next year is exciting because we do receive Engine 2 likely in Q4. It was ordered in 2024. It'll obviously be delivered next year. We were working under the auspice of the 20-year replacement that Fire Underwriters has implemented. The good thing about this truck is that it will have a greater pumping capacity, and collectively over time, we will be closer, or what's more likely to happen with more development in the community, the Fire Underwriters is going to raise our required pumping capacity, and hopefully we're going to be in a position, because we did planning on the long term, that our pumping capacity will be at a level that we won't have to look at additional apparatus. And the other thing, the big part of our whole service delivery model is entering to fire suppression agreements in different service areas. It offsets our operational costs. And so this truck is essentially being outfitted for that purpose, so that we continue to provide that service outside our municipal boundaries, which brings in revenue. The financial plan amendment bylaw was adopted tonight. It included 3 projects that we hope to get a jump on early in the year. The emergency vehicle traffic preemption lights at Vote and River Ranch Road, trying to keep in tune with Public Works schedule for their upgrade. The next thing is the wildfire structure protection plan, which obviously we'd like to have in place before wildfire season this year. And then the aerial platform ladder truck, it's the long term, looking out the 4-year build time essentially. And we're still working on the final design of that, and that information was provided in your briefing notes. There's really only one new piece of capital in our budget this year, and that's for fire hose. And it's the value of it is $30,000, and we've applied to the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for 100% grant funding to offset the cost of that. A fun fact, the Merritt Fire Rescue Department has about 10 kilometers of hose in our inventory that we have to maintain, and we test every 2 to 3 years. Unfortunately, this last year we did some testing and some of the oldest hoses failed. So we are short on hose, and specifically for things like if we were to set up a perimeter sprinkler system around portions or subdivisions in our community. So that's why this is really important. We're fortunate to find a grant funding stream. We just hope that we're successful, and then we'll have that hose in place. And don't know if there's really too much more to our budget. If you look at the 5-year, you'll see things like Command 1 replacement is in there for 2028. It was originally premised, I believe, in 2023, and Council of the Day moved it out 5 more years. And then I guess in 2028, we'll review it again and see what happens. But obviously, there's a big commitment with respect to the aerial ladder truck and the ordering of that, and the fact that we're 4 years away from even seeing it. So,
Councilor Petrosi. Thanks, Chief, for the report. Just a question. Do you ever need specialized units to come in to assist, say, for fire investigation? Or do you actually have the manpower here that can actually properly or
investigate?
Yeah.
So how does it work in Merritt? So we have level 3 fire investigators. We have 2 of them within our department. Because of the cost of fire investigations, we usually try to partner with whether insurance companies. And it's not that we're coming up with the same conclusion, but they are the ones that can hire the excavators, and they're the ones that can fund a lot of that. But anything suspicious goes to the RCMP, and we've been very fortunate to have their fire cause investigators come in and assist us. Okay. We also have the Office of Fire Commissioner. We can make a request, and we've had one of the regional inspectors come and assist us in the case of something like the Comfort Inn. That's a large investigation for us.
And then the cost of bringing these people in is covered by?
Not by us. They're all their own agencies.
Right, right.
We're still responsible to do our general investigation and report that through the Office of Fire Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councilor Shirley.
Thanks for the report. I really enjoyed it. Couple questions. The WEP program, does it bring money into the fire department? And if it does, where does it go?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the WEP program doesn't. It doesn't bring in any dollars to us. We've tried many. We've looked at many avenues to fund it through government grants and different things like that. But no, it's a standalone program. I guess the one thing we have to recognize is they are paid on call firefighters. When they're working in the station in the day, they are not remunerated unless there is an emergency and they respond to it, or they're allowed up to 4 hours of paid training per week. So that's the true value in the work experience program. What we do for them is we set them up in a good position to apply to career departments. And as you know, the turnover is quite high and they don't stay too long. So the commitment that they make in the short term usually pays off very well in the long term.
Okay. Okay. And another question. I'm looking at your revenue here. Coldwater, Upper Nickel, and Fatton, do they contribute any money? Do you go to any calls?
No, we have no protection agreements with any of those bands.
So you don't go if there's a fire in Coldwater Reserve, you don't go?
No.
Okay, so it's just Lower Nickel Indie Band and the Cooks Ferry.
Cooksbury, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hogan?
I just want to start by saying that I hope future council will be in a better position to provide what is needed for in each department. So I hope the decisions that we are making now will have, a positive impact in the future. Let's go with the hoses. I feel they are essential equipment. So and I'm glad that you found that grant, but again, a grant it can be approved, it can be denied. So I hope there is a backup plan to be able to cover the cost for the hoses.
Kevin, I could defer to you.
CFO?
So we currently fund the fire reserve with about 1.5% of taxes. So we initially started in 2023 with a plan to start saving for the self-contained breathing apparatus at a level of 50,000 per year. Last year, we were able to add 113,274 to that plan. So we have 160 annually going into reserve. We also placed some insurance proceeds across our reserves, depending on originating nature of what we were being paid out stemming from the flood. So there was contributions to the fire reserve for that as well. So the backup plan would be to fund it out of fire reserve.
Well, the idea is to put money away in the reserves is to grow that money instead of depleting that money. I know that it's better to have that money, to be able to count on. So that leads me to the next question. So I believe I had already asked you this and I can't remember. When we talk about the different revenues from the TNRD, Cooks Ferry, what is that money going to? Can you remind me?
It goes into the fire department.
Just the fire department.
So it nets against the costs that we incur operating the department. So if you look at your source and use of funds graph, that's offsetting what would otherwise have to be funded by property taxation. So our property taxation draw is lower as a result of that service revenue.
And last question. Is there an opportunity to create a service agreement with the other First Nations bands so that we can increase the revenue?
I guess that would be their interest in doing that. I do think there are some issues. One is distance and time and all those things of what benefit would we be. But I can't say there isn't that opportunity for certain.
No, Chief, Coldwater has their own fire department, do they not?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, I know the issues with Harmon Estates and the hullabaloo we had with that until we had a grass fire and then everything solved itself. I'm not sure we would want to get to how far do you feel comfortable going out of town? Like I know for a fact that there's up by Dr. McLeod's, you don't go that far.
No, we don't go past Nicola Dam on Highway 5A, and it's mostly service agreements. We were approached to provide service. The one thing we have to consider though is, remember, we are working with a paid on call fire department, and they all have their own regular employment, and so a lot of reliance ends up being on career staff and the work experience firefighters as well, because daytime response is very low. Our call volume is so high that a lot of employers don't want their employees to leave multiple times per day. So in looking at a business plan or business model, there's no way to really look at, every time we look at a service increase, we have to look at our staffing issues. And then the easiest way to do that is to look at career staffing, which is the most expensive option of all. So it would take up putting together a business plan to see how much more we could manage. We find I'm going to say most fire departments in the province now are finding provincial deployments are lucrative as from a cost perspective or in bringing in revenue. We're no different. We spent 14 days up in Fort Nelson last year, and we were in Brookmere, and we had multiple responses onto the highway, which were all remunerated. When we look at the cost per hour for an engine, it's $717 per hour all found. So it adds up pretty quick. And so if you look at the value of some of these fire protection agreements annually, they don't bring in a lot of a lot of money because it's based on the number of structures and whatever formula we put forward and negotiate. So
Let's read it.
Just a quick question, excuse me. Did they ever catch the people that started the fire at Comfort Inn?
I cannot
Respond? Okay.
respond to that because I believe it's still under.
How long before it's open again, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, that's just my question.
Chief, just a quick question. Hospital closures, ambulances leave town, your crew has to jump in. What do you think you're into after 3 years and over 50 closures of your budget that has been spent?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I think we try to look at the bigger strains. You know, the hospital is closed and we get a call to go to the hospital because somebody's in the parking lot having some sort of an emergency. I will say in the last year, some of the issues with respect to BC Ambulance and their staffing levels have improved. And so we're not seeing quite the same. But I can tell you just from today, we had a ambulance from Ashcroft and one from Logan Lake in town because our ambulances, which are provincial asset, were out doing other things. And it doesn't take very much for those resources to go. It takes one significant or not even significant motor vehicle accident on the freeway. That's why the first responder program or how it originated is so that we could provide service. So today we waited with a patient for number of minutes. I can't put the dollar value to it. But there's a value.
That's money you don't get back, right? Comes out of your budget?
It isn't, there's no cost recovery. Right now, all that's happening is that they replace the soft items that we use, but through UBCM, and I know you've been advocating on our behalf, or municipalities have. There is supposed to be new first responder agreements coming out, and I know municipalities have asked and talked about cost recovery, but that's a much higher level than me.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Councilor Petrosi?
You had mentioned that paid on call, they have to be committed to 2,000 hours. So that's like 40 hours per week, pretty much, right?
Yeah. So if you take a 24-hour day and you take out their 8-hour regular workday, they're expected in their weekly rotation to be available at all times. So they're carrying a pager. They can't leave our fire protection boundaries during that time. That's the commitment. What's not represented in there is there's people that do lots of double duty. The rescue truck is also staffed with 5 people, scheduled with 5 people to ensure that it can respond. And then the work experience program firefighters, 2 of them at a minimum commit to the bush truck 4 to respond to medicals. But I can tell you, because they're here to gain experience, the truck usually goes full and people are volunteering their time to get the exposure.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? Any further presentation, chief?
No, that's it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to call a break here for about 5 minutes so people can go to the washroom. And so we'll take a break for 5. There he is. Santa has arrived. Merry Christmas.
Rating on my merit, and I wanted to say thank you for everything that you do for the security. I love the security. You care about each other. You are resilient, and thank you so much. So Merry Christmas to you all. I've got to get back to the North Pole. We've got a big thing going on tonight, but I just quickly wanted to wish you all a big Merry Christmas. Thank you for looking after each other.
Thank you, Santa.
So much. Day is wonderful. What you and your team. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Santa. Corporate Services, you're up. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council, and thank you for this opportunity to present this evening. So, you know, my name is Linda Brick, and I'm the Director of Corporate Services. In Corporate Services, there are 4 departments under this umbrella. They're legislative, communication and engagement, bylaws, and IT services. Tonight, I'm going to provide you with an overview of what Corporate Services is focused on over the past 2 years, and then I'm going to share what we're working toward in the coming year. Under the legislative arm, we draft bylaws, lease agreements, and manage the city records. We coordinate over 80 hours of council and committee meetings annually. We successfully organized and completed the 2024 by-election. We've reviewed and updated some significant bylaws that have become outdated to ensure compliance and to increase enforceability with those bylaws. Within the communication and engagement department, we help to organize the open house and coffee with council events. We produce the annual report. We have been producing the recreation guide 4 times a year. We produce the city page 52 times a year. We provide information for radio broadcast weekly. We advertise events and provide timely updates on repairs, closures, and projects in and around the city that are affecting the residents. We do this using multiple communication channels. So that includes social media, the city website, the radio, and the newspaper. Under bylaw services, we clean up encampments and mitigate neighbor disputes. We work with property owners to address community concerns. We manage business licenses and promote community safety through hedge and tree trimming programs, safety initiatives such as grass cutting and debris removal on properties, and parking enforcement for sightline management to make it safer for people to travel through the city. In information technology, we are in the process of completing a 2-year review of our technology services. We've ensured that the software and the tools are right-sized for the organizational needs. We've identified the cost savings that we can, and we can implement them to benefit the city while maintaining our core services. As we move into 2026, the department will continue to update bylaws, and there will be a session with council coming to review the communication plan. So as you heard tonight with the accessibility plan, we'd like to hear from you how you would like to communicate with residents in the community. So there'll be an opportunity to do that. We're also preparing for the 2026 election. One of the ways that we've been doing this is that we have been, for the last few years in the budget, we have been saving up so that this year there isn't a huge bump to pay for the election. The primary change in this budget is to include funding to develop the city's electronic document and records management system using Microsoft SharePoint and Purview. In 2025, the department hired a records manager whose first priority was to evaluate options for a comprehensive records management system to support the city's record management needs. Currently, the city does not have an electronic records management system. Our 637,000 documents are stored in multiple locations across various platforms. This creates inefficiencies and risks. To address this, we have already begun formalizing the program through the adoption of an updated records management bylaw that we did earlier this year. We are engaging departments to understand what their specific needs are while we're aligning the organizational standards. We've got every department seems to be saving records in a different way, so we're trying to standardize that. This project also aims to enhance collaboration, to streamline our content management, and improve overall efficiency through centralized communication in a shared digital workspace. The effective records management is critical to the city's operations, and it complements our asset management initiatives. This year, we've been implementing the asset management system through citywide. IT is working to make the fullest use of that system to create efficiencies wherever we can by decommissioning our DAT system and using citywide for our IT services tickets. So we're trying to create efficiencies wherever we can with what we have that's in place. The proposed solution that we are looking to do with using our SharePoint, creating a SharePoint site for records management. We've already got SharePoint in place. It's part of our Microsoft Office suite. So we're going to leverage SharePoint to expand its capabilities to meet our needs while we ensuring that we maintain ownership and control of all of our records. What we've had in the past is we've had a document management system that was from a third party. Once the relationship ended, we wound up with 25,000 files that we had to reorganize. By using SharePoint, we hope to not be in that position ever again by managing our own documents. As the volume of electronic information grows and compliance requirements become increasingly complex, a robust electronic document management system is critical in advancing the city's information governance system. Failure to implement a structured system will have long-term financial and legal implications. The city is obligated to retain certain records permanently and to dispose of them others according to our established schedules. Without a framework, we risk non-compliance. It'll be harder to respond to freedom of information requests, and it will cause exposure during legal proceedings. I want to thank you for your time and consideration of this request. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have in regard to my request or the overall budget for the department.
So thank you. Question on SharePoint. I know it's part of the Microsoft package. When I was with IBM and installing this, we would only get so many seats and then we had to buy seats for SharePoint. Do we have a certain amount of seats? In other words, so many people can use it only for so long, and then traditionally we would have 5 seats, 5 people could use it. Has that gone by the wayside? Now, I haven't been in this in the last 15 years, so.
So it is, what we do is we buy our Microsoft Office licensing annually.
Okay.
We've made sure we've actually spent time to go through all of the licensing. When I first took over, the licensing was one size fits all. So whether you were a seasonal employee or a full-time employee, you got the same Microsoft Office licensing, which wasn't needed. So we've been able to restructure that with a cost savings. SharePoint is included with those licenses.
Okay. The other thing, I don't know if the council knows it or not, but we no longer use telephones.
No, we don't. That's something else that's quite different. We've moved away from TELUS. That's become a cost savings for the city, is removing redundant lines, moving away from TELUS, moving to Totalcom. So all of our telephones systems are now voice over internet. So anybody who's got a city issued cell phone no longer has a desk phone because they have the ability to have 2 lines essentially on their cell phone. So you've got your cell phone number, and then you've got what's called ZAC mobile. So then you can have 2 different phone numbers coming in to your cell phone. So you have the ability to put everything down at the end of the day from the office, but if you're a manager and you've still got a city-owned issued cell phone, we can still get a hold of you if we need you in the case of an emergency.
And do you have any idea what that has saved us as far as cost savings? Or is that going to take a while for that to come back before we see anything?
We're still looking and seeing what the actual costs are. It is definitely thousands of dollars per month.
Okay, thank you. Put your, Regan.
How long have we been using this new telecom system?
We changed over, it's taken us a year, but we've just transferred over it in the last 2 months.
And it's taken me that long to figure it out to a certain degree. But once you get it, it's really, it's a nice tool because it comes up on your screen, everybody you've called. And even if you accidentally delete, you can call it back. It's quite, I like it.
And how much have you saved?
Don't know yet.
It's several $1,000s a month. We were paying over $5,500 a month to TELUS.
How many employees have staff phone or have double lines then?
Currently, we have, I believe it's 40 cell phones that
Wow.
have been issued. We don't replace the cell phones as much as we used to. We use everything until it's end of life. It used to be that it was every 2 years you would get a new cell phone. We do not do that anymore.
Yeah.
You can have a cell phone for 5 years now, 6 years
Hmm.
with one cell phone. If somebody leaves, we just take that cell phone and then we pass it on to the next person. We don't issue them a new cell phone.
Yeah.
We reuse everything. I'm pretty darn frugal.
Councillor Turner.
I just wanted to ask a question on, you were talking about the licensing and we were told before that you saved a lot of money, not everyone having the same license. So then how come, explain to me where the IT operating costs are higher?
There's a change in the way that you can receive services from Adobe, from Vadim, from all of these services. They know that it used to be that you could buy the product and you could keep it until you can install it on your computer and you would keep it for a long period of time. So say you bought Word for your home computer, you used to buy a little card, you would put in the code, you would have Word on there. It's now a service. So it's a monthly service.
Oh,
Everybody is switching to a monthly service, which increases our costs. So when you're looking at our Word, Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint, all of that, we pay monthly for those licenses. We do a yearly subscription, which reduces the costs, but we pay monthly. So it's not just purchasing Word, stick on a computer anymore. We have to pay every month. Same thing with Adobe. We pay every month. So we have reduced the number of licenses for Adobe. So we've got 10 licenses for Adobe. We found a cheaper alternative to that, Nitro. So we've got 20 licenses for those. So the high-end users for Adobe, they get the Adobe. Anybody else who's medium user, they get Nitro. So they get a cheaper option. When it comes to the licenses for seasonal workers, they just need to be able to log on to check emails, to check into HRS, to do their pay sheets. They have a much more restricted license with Microsoft Office. And we will only do that until the end of the year. So we will wait until they start. And then, here in January, when our licenses come up for renewal, I'm not renewing those licenses until they start work in April.
Okay. I'm going to show my ignorance with IT. You said that each department stores information in a different way. Okay, is it not just a simple thing to say, this is where you store it, not over here? Can't you just tell them where to store it? I mean, I don't understand all this different stuff,
That's
but
a
to
yes
me,
and no.
it seems like a simple thing. You don't store it here, you store it there.
So by using SharePoint, what we can actually do is, because right now what we have our servers, they're coming to end of life. I don't want to replace our servers. You're looking at about $40,000 to $50,000 to replace the server, plus setting it up, plus the maintenance, plus the security on it. So that gets expensive. So if we can avoid that, that's a good thing, because we've got another 2 years on the servers that we've got. By moving to SharePoint, we can move into the cloud. There's still a cost associated with going in the cloud. It's a storage cost. This data, wherever you put it, you're going to have to pay for it. So there will be a cost associated with that. But having it in the cloud means that we can use a SharePoint. We can create one entry point. We can have a behind the scenes management, which is Purview, so that we can apply all of our pieces to it so that we know when we have to destroy it, when we have to retain it. So all of the scheduling can be done behind the scenes by our staff person. But everybody will be trained on it. Right now, we've got people that are saving to OneDrive. They're saving to the server, which is our P drive. A lot of people are using Outlook, so their email servers as storage for records. So when somebody leaves, we have to go through their email, save and archive that. We have to go through their OneDrive. We have to go through their computer, because they're saving it on there. So there's a whole host of different places people are storing records. We want to get that down to just one place. So then at that point, we can tell them exactly where it is that we want to keep it. So we can have that control.
Okay, so the right now we have a full-time records coordinator.
Yes.
And that person is on a grant. Were they?
No, she's not on a grant. She's a full-time employee.
Full-time? Okay, so it wasn't a 1 year appointment?
No, this is a full-time position.
Okay, and that person is going to be responsible for getting everyone to?
Yes. To find all of our records, to set it up behind the scenes, to manage it behind the scenes. One of the challenges with the way that records used to be stored was we also have a lot of paper. We run out of space to keep paper, so we don't do paper anymore.
Yeah, I know. I've got binders of minutes. So, okay, thank you.
Councilor Hogan.
Thank you. So I did identify a few things that you mentioned, the records management risk that you mentioned, also the IT cost inflation due to the subscriptions and cloud models. I would like you to expand on the declining of revenue, but from the bylaw in animal control. So we're talking about 16,000. So license permits and fines. So what's the rationale behind?
It has declined over the last few years. At one point, we had a bylaw enforcement officer who was very dedicated to walking around and focusing on making sure that dogs were licensed in the city. If she met somebody in a park, the dog wasn't licensed, she would license it at that point in time. That was when people carried cash and it was easier to do. We can't quite do that anymore. Our focus is not necessarily on that. We also moved, one of the big changes that we saw was when we moved to DocuPet. So from the city managing our dog licensing, we moved to a third-party provider, DocuPet. We saw a steep decline at that point in the relicensing of dogs. So we are working on trying to bring that back up. We don't use DocuPet anymore. It is now the city that manages it. We remind people that they need to have their dogs relicensed. When we had a seasonal bylaw officer, one of that person's tasks was to go out to the parks and make sure and remind people, hey, your dog needs to be licensed. Here's a treat for your dog. Oh, I see it's not licensed. You know what? Let me educate you on that. And here's a flyer. Go visit City Hall and get your dog licensed. And this is what the licensing does.
Regarding the business license, have we had decline as well in that area?
There has been a slight decline in business licensing revenue. I'm not 100% sure why. One of the things that we did do when we had a seasonal employee was she did an audit of all of the businesses and actually physically went and visited all the businesses to make sure that everybody had a business license posted. There were some major businesses that did not have a business license and hadn't had one in a few years. So there is a benefit to having boots on the ground and people actually out engaging with residents.
Thank you.
Linda, Orsio, when we used to work up at the Horseshoe and I was doing work up there, we would occasionally work with the CSOM program out of TRU, which is the 3-year program to get your Microsoft Systems Engineering. And we would use them year 3 to help to get basically do a practicum for 6 months at a very reduced charge. Is that available any longer?
We are using co-op students.
Okay, good.
We have very successfully used co-op students. One of them is now our manager of IT.
Yes, now.
Yep, she was our co-op student for 2 semesters. She's graduated. She has been a lifeguard here with the city for 8 years. So she is now coming in to IT. She has been working for the last 2 years with our consultant, learning our systems inside and out, which is one of the big changes that we're looking to do. Is we've had a consultant 2 years ago come in and help us reestablish what our system's going to look like and what our IT department is going to look like. So we're going to...
How traditionally long does a co-op student get now to actually be in the office before they have to return?
4 months. It's typically a 4-month term. We have another co-op student that we've had in while Laura is off on, she's finishing her schooling right now. So we were able to bring in another student. That is at a much reduced cost when we do bring in students. So
one of the questions I had when I was up at NVIT was they were wondering if at some point we would return to the same thing, an office practicum where somebody at NVIT could do a couple of weeks here. And they're not ready to go in that direction yet, but they wanted to know if we would be available to that. And I said, I'm sure that there would be no issues with that, and just to present something. So you'll probably see that, because at one point we did that as well, did we not?
that would have been before my time, so I'm not aware of that, but I do know that we have been very lucky this year that we got the grant from LGMA. So we have an LGMA intern where they've paid $42,000 of her wages. So that was a huge bonus to us to be selected as one of 5 communities to get the LGMA grant. So we've had an intern for a full year.
Excellent. Any other questions? On to protective services. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Protective service, corporate services. Mike's already on, Dave.
Welcome, your worship and counselors. I'm the Director of Community Services. We're going to be starting off with our economic development. As you can read in 2026, the economic development, we focused on finishing on the remaining scope of our rural economic diversification and infrastructure program grants. Staff are currently working on putting this project together and finishing up all these funds and projects for 2026. The province has supported us in using $100,000 of this grant funds towards staffing. So a 0.5 FTE term is proposed for 2026 to help with moving these projects forward, help deliver the workforce engagement strategy and placemaking scopes, and using the project using 46,000 of the $100,000 that can be allocated towards staffing. Council's input will be sought through various channels, including council reports and lunch and learns early 2026 to inform additional actions and budget allocations to complete this grant by year end. The economic development FTE, I believe, remains in the budget for 2027 and for future decisioning. Following 2 years of consecutive reductions in the economic development budget, we are requesting a 0.3% of taxes or a $35,000 increase for advertising in 2026. And I believe, Kevin, we're sourcing this out of the unfilled FTE position. Yeah, for 2027 and IT. So the request for the $35,000 will also help us with our economic marketing plan that is ending this year and coming out with the investment strategy and website. So being able to offer some advertising to forward this project on would be beneficial.
Councilor Rogan.
When I see that the ECDE position is not budgeted for 2026 and it's until 2027, that makes me nervous. I think that when we talk about economic development, there is a lot of work that needs to be done and you don't see the results the next year or even sometimes 2 years or 3 years later. So I feel that there is a little bit of inconsistency in that area and we have to address that. So I don't feel that a part-time position can take over or continue the current projects that we are working on. So that it's a big concern for me.
Anyone else? Seal.
Thank you, Your Worship. To address, pardon me?
CAO, sorry.
Yes. To address your concern, I do have a couple of ideas and we've got some opportunities coming up that we'll be able to talk about when you get a little bit more into our meetings to discuss this a little bit more. We can bring them in that time. We're investigating a few options. And it looks like we have some opportunities. So on the ECDEV side. So as we move forward, some of the stuff just gelling for me right now. So not really a Christmas surprise, but I do have some good news that hopefully will meet your approval at the time.
Councilor Charney.
I didn't see much with our ECDEV person, even over the 2-year, the 3-year period. I've seen more development with our mayor doing a lot of this. I also think we have to be very careful with the number of people we hire. You see it in all areas of government, the bloating that is taking place and the taxpayers are paying for that. So I think we have to be very careful in our hiring, that we're very cognizant of what the taxpayers are paying. We also, I'm not too sure if this is the appropriate time, but we also have money that had to go out for an unexpected expense in a high number. And I don't know where that money came from, but we have to account for that. And so to me, that's 2 positions right there that that we have to be careful not to hire.
So I'll be honest with you, Councilor Charney. My position as mayor is for me to bring people to the community, but I lack ECDEV development knowledge. So having conversations with the CAO and other directors, I still want to continue to do that, but I think we need, and I have to agree with Councillor Olden, we need somebody that is actually trained to move that forward with future. I look to next month or the month after, or who I've called last week. And that's good for a while, but we actually need somebody that can actually formulate a plan that could start benefiting us 2 or 3 years from now. I'm focusing on development and bringing business and jobs to the community, but there's other parts of the economic development, such as downtown revitalization and stuff like that. And I have no idea how to do any of that. So as I've explained to the CAO, I'd like my role to change to the fact where I contact people, try to get them there here, and then hand them to the people who can do that job correctly. That time is coming to an end for me because I think we're missing some things. So, and as the CAO told you, that'll be more delved into as we move on. I'm not going to stop. We actually have somebody coming, I think Friday, that probably is we've always got somebody coming to look at something, and that's my job, is to take them around, show them. But when it starts to come to a future of what 2, 3, or 4 years from now, I think that's where we're lacking. So I'll be the first one to tell you that. So. Anything else, CAO?
Yeah, if I may elaborate on that, thank you, Your Worship. Very much like the community services with people that are struggling in the community, ECDEV is one of those things that should really be a wraparound service and more than just one person furthering the needs in ECDEV. So we have a number of opportunities. We've been doing some work in development services. We're doing some work with some of the other groups. If we can get everybody thinking the same way and developing towards the same goals, we'll be able to do this with a lot less cost and a lot more success. So that's part of the plan. I just want to reassure you that we will bring to you over time is we have some good opportunities. We have some good people with a variety of experience that we can lean on. Believe it or not, myself is one of them. There's a fair bit we can do and a lot of ideas out there, but using the departments that engage with people that are bringing investment to the town, whether it's development services, whether it's contacts with our infrastructure services, whether it's our community services, if we're all on the same page moving forward and talking to people with the same goals, we're going to do it as a team. And I think that's where we're going to see the biggest bang for the buck. Still like the idea of somebody more dedicated and experienced to guide everybody on this, but we all have to talk the same language.
Dave, just a quick question. This is going to seem minor. One of the things that I've noticed when I walk into my office now, I no longer have to turn my lights on. We have that automatic light thing that happens. And then as I leave, it goes off. I noticed most of the offices are that now. Is that a saving situation? Are we seeing anything from that, or?
Well, we'll be monitoring that. We're hoping for a savings increase in that just because of office lights obviously turning off, and we went to LED instead of the, T8 system. So with the city hall upgrade, so we had such an incremental savings with the contractor that we had that we went in with the automated switches as well. So we're hoping for a very impact this year. After a full year, we're just finishing it up this year. So next year we'll get a full look at what the costing of electrical of this facility will be costing, because lights is one of our biggest energy costs in here.
And these are the things that council doesn't see all the time. So I just wanted to bring it forward that a change has been made there, and hopefully it's does exactly what you hope it will do. Councilor Regan.
Thank you. A couple of things that I wanted to bring up was, first and foremost, is we're still waiting for before we were going to go on with the economic development. A year ago, we all sat and talked about determining what exactly our land assets were and which areas we wanted to go with development, whether it was light industrial or some of the other areas that we spoke of at that time. So when you say that you have somebody coming in on Friday, is that somebody to interview for an economic development officer, or is that somebody
coming to invest?
To invest. Okay, well, that's good news. But I'm still waiting for that report, which I think you were at that meeting too.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor. We did portion of a land inventory structure. I know our communications department was in portion of it. I believe some of it is going to come out with the investment guide that is due at the end of this year.
Investment guide.
There's an investment guide and an investment website that are supposed to be coming through from one of our contractors.
Okay, well, it would have been nice to get an update earlier than today on that.
The CEO, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. To fill in some of that as well, just this week, I had a meeting with some representatives and Cretia in Development Services from the Industrial Lands Department of the province. They're actually doing a lot of that themselves as well and collecting the information that the communities are providing when we get all that collected and putting it in their own GIS and mapping all this out and doing work themselves. So there's from the grassroots in the community right up through the province, they're looking at what do they have to do to encourage industrial land development and use and where the land is and how to direct people as well. So there's a lot more going on than just locally as well. And just wanted to report that we had that meeting this week and there's very bit going on there as well. They're gonna have a whole GIS platform built on where things are that's searchable. So they can help direct people to where the land is that they're gonna need and the surfaces that need to support them. So a fair bit of work going on.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on, into protective services areas, community services, is in charge of, emergency management and ESS operations. Our manager, Adam Hart, he's, had his first year fill with this and he's, been a great asset to the team. He's worked with his ESS group. I think he's done a very good job in working on our, emergency plans and information. As we've all seen with the river highlights that have happened in the past few days, the communications has gone out to the public on and information like that. I just wanted to give a shout out to him and Kim because it's been, as a flood survivor myself, it was very awesome and informative that he, was communicating that out early enough to city citizens, for sure. We don't have really many capital plans and everything for this group this year. Operationally wise, a lot of it is grant funded. So we've applied to grants, and so once we get them, then we make plans from there. Any questions about our services?
I'd like to ditto your comments about Adam Hart. I think he's done a great job with bringing the ESS team together. He's very knowledgeable and he's, I just think he's an excellent person who's doing a great job. Councillor Etchard is on the team also, and I just like the way he's running the team.
I think we probably have one of the best trained ESS groups in all over the province, I think. I have great. My wife tells me to tell you that, so she's on it too. So she says, you better say something. So here I am. So no, but I do believe that we really do. The training is, matter of fact, there's an ESS meeting tonight. It's a couple times a month training and you guys are all ticketed. So yeah, hats off. It's compared to what we had many years ago, this is a much bigger step up. And what's really nice about that is the citizens can relax. The fact that we've got somebody and a group of people that can seamlessly move into evacuation and getting them set, and everybody has the same ability to do it, where we don't just have one person. If they're not there, it fails.
Well, one thing Adam does do is encourages you to take courses. Both Councillor Etchard and I spent all day Saturday Friday taking a first aid course. So, he encourages you to take courses from JIBC and the first aid. So he's not just sitting in that office doing nothing. He's out there and he's encouraging the team to better educate themselves. So hats off to him.
Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our be our general government. So it'll be our city hall building here. We have new projects that are on the go for capital projects this year. We've just recently acquired Nicola Valley Therapy offices. So requesting there $45,000 to renovate the space and look at what needs to be happening and work with the team on where and what department the city wants to be utilizing that and what infrastructure and IT need to go into place to make that operational. Also the new request for AEDs in all remaining facilities. This request was brought forward by Councillor Charney that had wanted AEDs in all the remaining city facilities. So we've looked at a list of all our city facilities that we have and potential of putting AEDs and all that and the cost of what that would look like. That'll also have to have an inclusion of an operational cost later in 2030 with the replacement of batteries and pads that have to go into that. The third request on this one will be the City Hall front door replacement. We've had several problems with our front doors. They are aging. They're not latching properly from time to time. So few incidences we've had city staff have to come and maintain them and watch them and then get contractors in to fix them. So incurring extra costs as they are aging and failing. We can't have the facility unlocked and unsecured for sure, because we have multi-million dollars of equipment and stuff that's around here. And we do have incidents of vagabonds around the facility.
I noticed, maybe some people haven't noticed, but I noticed we've made the upstairs much safer for staff, as far as the permanent glass around the ladies behind the counter and the changing of the doors. So that looks much safer up there.
Yeah, so we've installed glass upstairs for safety wise. We've installed glass doors into the accounting ladies' room, so their visibility is way better. They're lockable, so for security reasons. We've implemented a notifying system that dings a bell to all the offices. So if there's any altercations or any suspected altercations, staff can approach immediately to the front end and be able to support the front end staff.
Much appreciated. Councillor Rogan.
Question for CFO. There are so many requests right now to keep track of all the requests. So at the last meeting, we also discussed perhaps the implementation of the Excel report so that we can track all the requests, how much it's going to take us. Are we going to have something like that for the budget meeting?
CFO.
So each department as part of this presentation has that Excel table built in. So every dollar of capital is accounted for tonight in each section. So this is the table for general government. There'll be one under public works, etc. So every dollar of capital is already accounted for in this presentation tonight.
Are we going to have access to see all those together, all those tables in one document?
We can certainly do that. I did provide that as an appendix from the prior year as a reference.
Is that something that would be beneficial for everyone?
Well, yeah. On to you, sir, again.
Absolutely. Moving on to our recreational and cultural services. We have multiple facilities we operate. We operate in the Nickel Valley Aquatic Center, the arena, the Civic Center. We have our administration in their buildings, recreational programming. We've taken on the operations of monitoring Claybanks RV Park, which is back in operation. We work with the senior center and museum, Bailey House and such. Want to talk a little bit, starting off this one with the level of service for our kids' day camp. It was wanted to be a discussion program of what happened this year and what our program looks like, entails. So we operated kids' day camp that operates annually from beginning of July through the end of August, as well as 2 weeks in March. It runs daily from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. This program provides families with affordable and reliable daycare and childcare options during school breaks, while offering children a safe and engaging and active environment. Participants can physically and socially be active, interact with peers, and continue learn throughout the summer months. The summer program features weekly thematic activities such as art, sports, wilderness exploration, space, and community heroes. Weekly themes are supported by age-appropriate outings and special special guest visits, including trips to the local fire department, visits from animal and community organizations, hands-on science activities, baking, new sports experiences, and outdoor recreation opportunities. The program is primarily based out of the Merrick Civic Center, our room 4, and makes use of our city parks, our recreation facilities, and the Nicola Valley Aquatic Center and the arena. In recent years, the city of Merritt has partnered with NVIT. We've secured co-op students in the past, strengthened a relationship with our local post-secondary institution in Indigenous communities. In this co-op program, NVIT would pay a portion of the wages of the rec assistant that was an NVIT student. Unfortunately, this year the funding didn't come through. And we also pursued some external funding opportunities through, we had a couple applications out to Canada Jumpstart, charities. And those programs we didn't get those as well. So the loss of funding of some of those streams resulted in an operational loss this year for us. As you can see in the breakdown of participants we had, people had the opportunity to pay for a day, pay for a week, our program hours, children ages. So all in all, our cost recovery, we cost recovered 77% of the expenses in this program. Normally, we would be at a cost even. This unfortunately, it was a loss year, but moving forward, we're still searching for those revenue additions and grant funded opportunities. This year, Canada Summer Jobs, we are now eligible to apply for some students. So we have put the application forward as well. And I know in conjunction with Public Works, they're putting in for some camp positions as well. So hopefully we can get those, and that would definitely make our revenue cut. Is there anything council would like to talk about that program and the continuance of that program? Councilor Cherney.
So in the past, this kids day camp program has broken even. So it's just this last year because of lack of funding that.
Yeah, normally that program runs at a break even, if not a $5. We keep the cost about, we aim and target to be cost even.
Okay. And what about the Canada Summer Jobs? What job do these students do?
Well, for that we'd be searching for rec assistants. So we'd be searching for the ones that help with the program. They aid with our recreational coordinator. They watch the kids. They work with them. They work with the instructors that come in. They escort them to the activities, and then yeah.
This isn't just for this day camp program, is it? Is it like it's all summer?
This is what so this is what we're going to be applying for. It's another one of our avenues that we can get funding for paying for recreational, assistance.
So the day camp does run all summer.
Great.
Quick question. Do these people have to have some sort of certification, or do they work with somebody who's certified that? I'm just curious.
Our recreation coordinator is fully versed and takes extra training and that in recreational programs. And she's continuing on her education as well. A lot of our recreational assistants are youth, are NVIT, our students and stuff like that. So we offer the first aid training and the basic certifications. And if they're with us for a long period of time, we would definitely be looking at any extra training we can get them for sure. And
excellent. Thank you. Any other questions, Council? You're a busy guy.
Coming over to our capital for requests for our facilities and such. We'll start with the first one is a carryover of the Nicola Valley Aquatic Center mechanical room. That one was supposed to be done this year, but we found that by the time we got to the RFP situation time to start building it, we wouldn't have had time to appropriate the appropriate, an appropriate contractor. So we've moved that target, and the target date now is going to be for August and September next year. RFP will be going out January 12th. And then once we get the submissions and stuff like that, we'll be able to understand more of what the closure will look like. It's right now targeted at 8 weeks. So hopefully if everybody comes in under scope for that, that'll be what it'll look like. The next one project will be the curling rink chiller replacement. That one we were asking for 180 with an increase of 70. We are looking at, so that is the curling rink chiller, not the arena chiller. It is coming up to its end of life. According to Technical Safety BC, the average lifespan of a shell and tube chiller is 20 years. We are at that now. So it's my recommendation that it's a time to change it, and change it out. We can definitely work with our curling club to see what kind of funding and grant funding they can go after to help us with this project. But it's up to council to decide if they want to. It is technically possible to operate the unit past this 20 years. We do monitoring on it. It does determine whether it's failed and such, but every year you go adds more risk. Fernie did this, as we all are aware, and they pushed the boundaries, and 3 fatalities ended up happening in that facility. Sure.
So this is a privately owned facility. We own the land, they own the building and all the equipment
They own the equipment in their facility, yes,
in their
correct.
facility.
Yes.
And so the chiller is 180,000 plus 70,000 you're thinking for.
Well, we're going away from technologies changed now that we don't do the shell and tube chillers. They go to a plate and frame. So it'll be a bit different design. It uses less ammonia load, so we would lower our ammonia capacity in our plant, which would be a very cost-effective thing and safety variable thing to have less
But
ammonia
you're
on site.
basically, you could be looking at $250,000
Could be, yes,
for a facility that's not owned by the city.
yes.
So where does the onus come on the curling club versus the taxpayer?
That is a great question, Councillor Charney. That would be up to your guys' prerogative. If you didn't want to replace that infrastructure and while we operate it till fail, then it would be shut down and then they wouldn't be able to. The curling club requires refrigeration from our system. The system has been separated. So their side is totally independent of the arena side.
You know, because I just look at other things, Love to Dance. You know, maybe all of a sudden they need something in their facility, so they come to the city and say, you know, we need this. So, you know, I would like more information, and, you know, what responsibility for the replacement does the curling club take over? When do they feel that they should be paying for this, since it is their building? That's just what I would like to know, because the taxpayers are paying for a privately owned building.
Well, it's part of the plant, it's part of our building.
Okay.
The refrigeration plant is us. We have the certified staff to operate it. They do not. So we provide them with refrigeration, not the equipment. The equipment is all owned by the city. It's monitored by us. It's taken care of by us. Yeah, we provide them refrigeration to their facility.
Okay.
That's it? I don't believe we do. Councillor Richer.
Does the chiller provide benefit to the arena as well?
That chiller, no.
Okay.
The systems are separated, so that chiller in itself only provides refrigeration to the curling rink.
And they pay the service fee to the city, don't they?
Yes, currently they pay $1,000 a month during operations for the refrigeration fee. We are entering into the contract with them and talking to them now that we're starting to monitor the amount of energy that's being used through their brine pump. We'll be able to facilitate a better idea of what the actual cost of refrigeration, because I believe the $1,000 was done back about 10 to 15 years ago. So we'll get a more accurate reading of what the actual refrigeration costs are, and then we'll go into negotiations with that group going. So they're paying for the service that they're receiving.
But also what's different with this building is that they own the building, but it's on city land. So I mean,
That is
I
correct.
think where we're different with the other groups is that if they decided not to operate, we'd be responsible for the building and the equipment anyway. But yeah, so. makes
And
it
just
tough.
so council is aware, under the municipal charter, we can no longer charge them $1 a year.
So, yeah.
So we have to come up with what that looks like as well. Municipal charter says that the taxpayers have to receive a fair remuneration for the use of the property. So that's another discussion that we'll be having with them. Councilor Egan.
Thank you. I just was under the assumption that the curling club was grandfathered in years and years ago because they shared the chiller. Is that what it was called, or the brine maker, or?
According to history of the facility, the curling club used to share the refrigeration at the arena. Years past from my working there, they ran into problems with ice loads. So when Centennial Games happened or the big moccasin tournaments, the heat load went from the arena and the curling rink ice suffered. So they ended up having to do more maintenance, more pebbling, where it changes the curve of their ice. It changes everything. So it was determined years in the back to separate the system so their system can be run individually and it could control their ice temperatures way more accurately to make better curling ice.
Was there an agreement put into place at the time of the replacement when they were separated?
Not to my knowledge.
So sort of grandfathered in is my understanding.
Any other questions? Oh, let's turn.
So when you start getting a better idea of how much it's costing this new chiller, then that will affect the lease per year? Will that come into you're going to give us that information?
That'll be council's prerogative whether if they want to charge that extra rate to the curling club.
Come to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Moving on to the Nicola Valley Memorial Electric Ice Resurfacer. That's a project that we are coming to end of life on our ice resurfacer. It is a propane operated machine. We've run into several incidences over the last couple of years with servicing the equipment on it. It's changed the air quality in the building, so we have to keep it monitored at all times to make sure the CO2 levels stay low in the level of facility because it's public actionable space. And moving to an electric ice resurfacer would solve that equation. We are looking for 200,000 and asking for a $50,000 increase in that. If you can see the picture, we brought in an electric Zamboni in for testing for a week and we looked at it. We've talked to the contractor that built this equipment. And they gave us a price scope that said that really electrical equipment is probably going to be up around $250,000. So not determining if council wants to go in this direction and wants to get a new ice resurfacer that's electric. We'll definitely go into a competitive bid for there's multiple ice resurfaces out there. There's Zamboni, there's Olympia, there's Tiger Cat, there's a few others that definitely can be looking at.
What's the lifespan on the batteries on the Zamboni or the electric ice resurfacer?
It's changing every day. So right now, last I heard was about 10, but I can definitely get you an answer next week for sure.
I know most communities are going to this. I mean, Chase just got one as well. We have two, do we not?
We have two propane operating machines, one stored down at Public Works. That was the last one that was retired. We've kept it up in service just in case we have a breakdown and a failure on our machine, so we don't have to shut the facility down and keep operations going.
If we do move in this direction, is there any cost recovery for auctioning off the other two or trade in value or?
Yeah, there would definitely be a trade in value we can auction off. We would take a look and make some opportunities to council what they would like to do. I think I'd have to really take a look. My recommendation would be to auction off our newer one and keep our older one just because we wouldn't get much cost recovery because it's aged out and it's too old. But you know what, we have put the money into it and we have serviced it, and our city mechanics are exceptional and have done a great job. So
excellent. Any questions? Nope.
Carryover for the Nicola Valley Aquatic Center resinous floor. this project scope was quoted out several years back, and talking to the company that did this flooring, we needed an increase of 60,000 of this project. We decided to carry over this project as the scope of work definitely would have put us past our 4-week shutdown this year. So having an extended shutdown next year in 2026, we figured this would be the best time to do this project, if council agrees to move forward with it. Civic Center flooring. This is the first project of 4 in the next 4 years. We are going to be targeting the auditorium and storage rooms, and then slowly every year moving our way through the facility to replace all the flooring. The CPO building, the former, I should say, it says former CPO building. We've requested $100,000 to potentially do something with the facility on council's directive. I've had communications with a company about rebuilding, redoing, getting it back operational. So there's a budgetary cost to that. And this part of scope would give us the mitigating steps to get that building up and running if that's council's direction to get it operational.
Councilor Charney.
What would you envision being in there? Office spaces or rented?
With staff, we can definitely have visions of, community groups. I know the Arts Council is looking for space. According to our design and plan that, we could always separate the back half and make a coffee shop out of the back and create a rental space in that area. There's lots of ideas floating around getting that space back and up and operational, what it can be used for. So I don't want to say I have one direction, but I mean, there's definitely great communication that we should be having.
Well, it would be nice to see it fixed up and rented out, bringing some income in and, just
create some life in Spear Square.
create life.
Yes.
CEO.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just to add a little bit to what the director's got to say on this, the $100,000 is being funded, from what I understood, out of the facility reserve, correct? So the overall estimate that they've given us at a high level right now to remediate that building so it's available for use is in the order of around $350,000 without a lot of investigative work, more superficial at this point. So what we want to do is get started on that and get the place emptied out, get the furniture cleaned up, start getting into the nuts and bolts of the downstairs and what we can and can't fix before we get too carried away with just trying to give a full scope restoration on the place to make sure we're making the right decisions as things get uncovered. So a little bit of stepping in, toes in the water kind of a thing to make sure we don't go whole hog right out of the gate. And we have decision points on the way there should we find things that we didn't expect. So very much like what we're trying to do with the compost facility in Public Works is work our way through stuff methodically and slowly to make sure we make good decisions. The future of that building, wide open. We've seen some plans recently for the square over there that it could be incorporated into a number of different things, a number of different entities. But we do have to get it safe and back up and running first. Primarily right now, obviously the air quality was an issue that failed it. A lot of that's going to be getting into the basement, getting the dirt pulled out, getting the foundation fixed, getting flooring put in there in the way of cement and vapor barrier, and working our way through all the HVAC system and getting mold and stuff out of there. So there's a bit of a process, but I don't want to just go, hey, here's a report, fix it for us, and then get 2 weeks into something and find a whole bunch more things that we uncovered. So we want to step into this one carefully. Okay.
Councilor Petrosi.
So what's been done with the building? I thought some of this had already been.
No, the
Done?
building's been closed. So
Yeah, it's been closed,
we've
but
had air quality testing done.
Right.
And yeah, so we're at the portion now where we need to start doing something with the facility.
Okay, thank you.
The report was why we can't use it, Paul. And some of us kind of felt that maybe it was a little premature. Councilor Egan.
Yeah, just going back one to the Civic Center flooring, how much did you say that was the budget was request?
The request this year is for $125,000.
And you said that's first of 4 steps?
The first of 4, yes. The next set will be $115,000. And I believe that's scheduled for rooms 2 and 3 and the kitchen. I believe, and then 100,000 is for the following year, and I think that's going to be the foyer and room 4, and then the remainder 30 will be the rest of the office space at the facility.
Thanks.
Moving on.
Okay, moving on to Spirit Square Phase 1 and 2. I put these in here before we actually got the presentation for the thing, for the vision of what Spirit Square can look like. Looking at doing some fencing. So the request is to put some decorative fencing up there that we can have gates in there. We can open, we can control the environment. Use that space and not leave it wide open to the whimsies of the community. I shouldn't say community, but I mean to the individuals we know that we can control the event, control the space, rent the space out, and open and close it for sure.
Councilor Sharn.
I agree. I think we have to solve a problem before we can address Spirit Square. So down the road, if we rent out the CPO building, do you envision that Spirit Square will then have this problem eliminated because there's something going on there all the time? Or do you think this problem will still continue?
I foresee if we get more people in the square, I believe the fencing issue, if we rent out that space, they would be able to monitor and open and close the gating system as they want people in the square, providing a service, maybe look at extra lighting in there to make it more brighter and more visible. I can foresee that being a space that we could really utilize and not become the detriment that it did. But we definitely have to solve these problems and get people in the space and get improved lighting. And I think just by securing it adds that level of, response that way we want to get the square that we want.
Yeah, I would love to see Spirit Square up and lively. I'm just afraid of shade and seats. We're just going to encourage the problem that we currently have eliminated. So I'm just wondering how we can solve, get a nice Spirit Square, but solve that problem.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, like they say, is to get the public there, to get the people there. So if we had a business that's there facing it, CPO when it was operational there, I know Marlene really took care of the square, and she had her issues and she had her times, but it was policed a lot better. It was facilitated, it was monitored. And with the loss of that, we seen the direction it totally went in, and it just became a free for all. And then with the fencing, I've really looked and I've watched how we've controlled the space. I think we can really monitor the space and be able to create a great space here with decorative fencing and opening and closing of this space for sure. The next one will be the Cadet Hall, HVAC and air conditioning. Right now, currently Cadet Hall only has 2 furnaces in it. They're the older style in-roof furnaces. There's no air conditioning in that facility whatsoever. This request is we've had several incidences with the HVAC system being aged out, and we've had to replace bearings and the motors and stuff like that, that it's coming due to time to replace these units. So if this council would like to go in that direction, I would recommend going with an HVAC unit with the option of an air conditioning unit, because our weather is getting hotter. We have taken over Cadet Hall for rental space, so we have more people and more community groups using it. It would just be beneficial to have that because it gets quite hot in there.
What we do have some tenants in there. We have the Rocky Mountain Rangers.
Rocky Mountain Rangers run the right side of the building. They have all their office space in there. We have the rental agreement with them. They pay us a rent every month now. And they have the use of the facility on Monday nights for their events, and the occasional event that they book through us if they need the space.
There's a church group in there as well, is there not?
There's a SMC church group that works out of there on Sundays, as well as there's dog training on Sunday afternoons. And then any other rentals, the Arts Council uses that for several training facilities and several, courses they put on for arts.
And that's the temporary ESS.
Temporary ESS location is used there as well for now. Yeah, and we're utilizing the space more and more and more. We're hoping to have some of our children camp stuff come out of there as well. That way they can utilize the school fields and stuff like that at the time during summer. And yeah.
Ain't job inside.
It definitely needs some love. So we're gonna be spending some time in there and spending some maintenance. It definitely needs flooring, but we want to tackle these things one small thing at a time. We want to monitor how we can facilitate this building. Instead of making it all ready to go, if it's not going to be a great rental space for us, we need to work on projects slow and steady.
Sound baffling on the walls too, if they're cheap.
Going on to the next project would be the Nicola Valley Memorial Arena mezzanine flooring. This is a flooring replacement that's been overdue. We've repaired and replaced strips there in the past, and now the seams are coming due, and it's becoming a trip hazard. It's a project that we've held off as long as we possibly can. So it's time to get this project done, and hopefully we can work this with the flooring company in a joint project with the Civic Center to be able to get one company in and create some savings with them installing both facilities at the same time.
Just a quick question, Dave. Have we ever had conversations about getting the sound system in there looked at? It's virtually impossible to understand what's going on during a hockey game unless you're right beside a speaker. Do we ever test to see which speakers are still working, which aren't? Because I know that none of them work upstairs.
We've done a system replacement. We've done the speaker replacement inside the facility in the arena portion of it. We can look at doing the mezzanine replacement. I do know that if you're talking Centennial games, they don't do enough testing. They use a mixing board, which I think messes our system up and doesn't make it as good as was possible. I've offered them lots of times to come to the facility pre-testing, and stuff like that, and they just haven't taken us up on it yet. Obviously it's a volunteer position for them to operate during a game, so hopefully in communications with them that we can work something out. But yeah, that's
I was just wondering.
They're tapping into our system and mixing it up, so that could be the implement everybody's problems change.
Thank you.
The next project will be the Nicola Valley gym equipment. We're requesting an additional $15,000 to this project. Currently, we have an ongoing equipment replacement for our cardio equipment. We have 6 cardio machines in the facility, and we've replaced 2 now, and we have 4 remaining to go, and they all are at end of life. So we are going to slowly stretch 1 each year. We're requesting an extra $15,000 to start doing that with our weight machines. We are finding that they are getting to near the end of their life, and want to keep the equipment up and running, keep it good. And so, yeah, that's kind of the request in there for that facility. I think the last one will be the Civic Center chair upgrade. So that's an upgrade that we have continued in the last 5 years. We've took a 1-year hiatus of that one and moved it over because cost of chairs were extreme that year. So we felt that we could hold off a year on that reoccurring replacement. So the project was to replace all our black Civic Center chairs to eventually go to a more comfortable, more accessible chair that's cushioned and padded. So the project is continuing. We are still replacing our chairs, as we had about 500 chairs at the facility, and we replaced about 70 each year. and then coming to lifespan of that.
Any questions? Nope, I'm good. Thank you. Next. Oh, here comes trouble. Oops.
Oh, yeah. Pardon me, your worship. We got planning and development services next.
Yes.
Krisha, are you prepared? Or do you want me to take that? It's pretty smoke and mirrors void. Okay, I can do it. Void of smoke and mirrors. Something else?
So what are we doing? We'll take a moment here. Too hot?
Permits and even like smaller permits like sign permits and temporary use permits. And that is the major part of the revenue. The development technologist role that we had with the planning and development services has been now transferred to the infrastructure team. And after adjusting the variance, we are proposing around $160,000 for some of the additional requests for next year. One of the requests is, and this is a big one, it's a financial feasibility analysis that we are supposed to do as part of the density bonus and inclusionary zoning, a requirement by the Local Government Act. This was briefly presented in the committee of the whole meeting from October, where the city can decide if you want to take part in the inclusionary zoning, which is kind of a zoning requirement, which we can ask the developers to include in their residential projects to provide affordable housing as part of the development. And that is specific to the residential projects. But for that, we are required to conduct a financial feasibility analysis, which will include analysis by consultants and consultation with the community, consultation with different departments, consultation with the council, and just presentations and open houses. So this is a big project, and we have to also align the density bonusing factor, which we already have in the zoning bylaw, with the provincial regulation. I believe the deadline for that is June 30th of 2026. And that will also require the financial feasibility analysis. So $75,000 is, I believe, the upper hand cost, which we'll get more clarity once we have some direction and once we have further meetings with the consultant to just know what the final budget will be. Next is wages and benefits. I guess this here can talk more about it because
Seal?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, just to sort of fill out the project that's being proposed here, you know, I would assert that this is, you know, another one of these somewhat semi-downloading type things where they're requiring more and more things in municipalities to do to meet their housing targets and whatnot. It's getting very expensive, obviously. We're hoping that 75,000 is the upper end of things. We're going to be well below that, but there's not a lot of definition exactly how this goes together yet. So, might be one of those, you know, WAG guess type things where we're going to get it more defined going forward. It kind of came up on us quickly. Ideally, we'd be able to do this, a lot of this work ourselves in the department, but we are not staffed at a level where projects like this, as we learned last year, can really move forward because of the amount of workload coming in. We did set some pretty significant high bar revenues last year, and the amount of permits coming in, it's been a pretty wild year. So I always, since then, the idea that we'd be doing more work in-house with our own staff makes me a little bit nervous because we haven't been able to achieve a lot of that just for being overrun by permits and things being built and investment in the community. And it's that's all great, but it does allow us to or require us to slow down the project work because we focus on the stuff coming in the door and the projects tend to take a back seat. So at this point, I'm hoping we get better definition on that project going forward, and we'll see where it goes. Related to most of the rest of the department, as indicated, this is revenues for service that we're providing, and it's wages by and large. There's not a lot of variables in a staff-rich environment like this where they simply do work and charge for permits and things that get done. So I'm not sure if you have any specific questions. We have realigned some of the staff a little bit. We're trying to streamline how things happen. We've noticed over the last year that the construction side of things, as far as the monitoring of development construction, doesn't seem to fit as well with the skill sets of the planners as far as managing the people trying to do that. So I want to bring that back into infrastructure and keep that under Mike and his team over there. That way we're doing a lot more common things, and I can probably have a much easier time helping him manage it as well from where I'm sitting. And I've been doing most of it up until the time we got that person down there. So it's one of those training things that we brought that person upstairs. He's working with the EngTech right now and trying to learn that job as well. And we're trying to combine forces and get a little bit better boots on the ground out there that way with streamlined effort.
Councillor Sherman?
What exactly is a financial feasibility analysis that we are required to do? What does it tell us, and what benefit does it do us?
Well, it may actually be a detriment depending on how you look at it. And that's one of the things that if you look at this and they want us to address this type of housing and how the bonusing will work, you have to determine whether or not it's financially feasible and what the roadblocks are. Obviously, it could deter development if we're requiring people that are building apartment buildings and whatnot to have lower, hang on, not just density, but lower rate. I got that correct? I blew that up, didn't I? I'm sorry, it's getting late. It could deter development because we're asking them to put more accessible price-wise into their developments, right?
So I still don't understand. What is it? financial feasibility analysis? Is it saying we have so many housing units at this price and so many housing units at this price? Or,
I think my understanding, and this is why I need a lot more detail, and it hasn't been clear to all of us yet, because it is just sort of evolving, is if we do an analysis to determine the impacts of the community, positive and negative, right? And then our assertion on whether or not we want to participate in something like this. I don't get the impression we can just say we don't want to do it without providing some background as to why we don't want to do it, right? It may be forced on us at that point. So there's a few moving parts in this thing that need clarity, 100%. Luckily, we're not passing this right now. I expect that number to change as we get more information. Right now, it is at the high end of the spectrum because it's evolving. Does that make sense?
yeah, I'm
And-
just wondering if we just didn't do it, what are the ramifications of that?
If we have to justify it to the province,
Mhm.
we need to do the study.
So they've got either which way. Nice.
Unless I find a sentence somewhere in a bylaw that they have or whatever that allows me to thumb my nose at it. Right now, we're expecting we have to do it based on the advice of the professionals that, oh, I intend to.
Councillor Hogan.
My question is regarding the casual building official. So it's expected a portion of their wage to be offset by the building permits. So do you have any idea, are you expecting 50% or what could be the amount that needs to be covered by, or it's going to be offset by the building permits revenues versus the regular budget?
Yeah, so I think we thumbnailed that at, around that $45,000 mark for the coming year, I believe with that, yeah. So that person works as required. So if the people we have are getting overrun by a bunch of stuff, they lean on that person to move a bunch of the paper forward. So we're not holding up development and discouraging, obviously, more permits coming in the door. So we took a look at how much that person worked sort of in the last part of last year after we got them moving and kind of gave it, that's roughly what we need. And that's probably around halftime at best, right? The other thing that this is doing for us is sort of the hidden benefit is obviously senior building officials are very difficult to get. Working on a contract basis provides us some security for the staff that we do have, that if they're away on holidays, files are still moving forward. I'm really discouraging retirement, but should something like that happen, we have at least an alternate step in, bit of crossover coverage to make sure that we're secure. This is not something that, Mike, close your ears. I'll give up a snowplow before I give up moving things along in building services. We have to encourage investment and we have to keep this stuff moving. That was sort of the solution we came up with last year when we saw the crew getting overrun by permits and the stress and the slowing down. This is how we addressed it. Luckily, we had revenue to offset it last year and we should continue. If we don't have the revenue, the use of that person goes down.
CEO, just a quick question on planning and development services. I know that we give we support TNRD. What do we actually use TNRD for our services?
I've seen the fella in the office a few times. My understanding was that we provide them office space. I'm not sure we're using them for any particular services, are we?
I know that we, when I talk about services, I mean, when I sit at the TNRD table, we talk budget. We use that, like they have their planners and their developers, and apparently we pay for some of that as well. We use their, and I think through Kevin, we're actually looking to find out if we're still able to use those. Because we are paying TNRD to use some of their development services people. Really? Yeah, through the requisition. So we've got to find out, and this has been my constant conversation with TNRD, is that we need to have a closer look at what we're paying for, because my understanding is we're paying for some development services costs over there that we don't use and nobody else uses either. So we are moving to a certain degree. I mean, it's something we've talked about, but I think we need to move a little bit further ahead with that, especially in the lieu of TNRD raising their costs that we have to cover. that
And if
we
there's a
need.
contract involved in that that says what they can offer us if we're already paying for it, hopefully there's not a user fee on top of having available.
I believe there is a user fee on top, and that's why we're discussing it, so. We have had a brief conversation and Kevin has done some work, but we need to do more.
Okay,
So sorry to catch you flat-footed like that, sorry.
noted, but I'll find out.
Thank you.
But we do, their one property, our building official does come and work out of our office. And we provide him space. He's got room for a little filing cabinet and stuff like that.
Okay.
That was my understanding, so.
Thank you.
And unless there's any other questions, it's a very people-rich environment. And other than that project that we're still trying to figure out the roots of, is there any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
So quick question, CEO. The people that have presented, do they have to stay or can they take off? I mean, I hate to see people sit here all night. If you're okay with sitting.
Well, they're definitely welcome to go if they've got better places to be. This is also very good context for them to listen to
I
as
was
well.
just
So
Not that I'm encouraging it, it's just that it's getting to be a long night.
especially a fire chief that might have to get up early in the morning to go chasing after something, I definitely understand that. Everybody else has the chains on, they have to stay.
Chief finds this exciting. Thank you.
Sure, the CAO will speak to some of this as well. We, perhaps by design, we have a bunch of carryovers we're going to try to get through this year and then focus most of our time into a few the higher priority capital projects coming forward, like the implementation of the wastewater treatment plant strategy and then options for the Kingard well will be our two moving forward. That's going to tell us how to get there. And then we'll most likely be implementing those into the capital project for years going forward. We are going to be looking to fund the regular 2 summer student positions that were removed from the 2025 budget moving forward, as well as adding a third one, either a seasonal labor or a caretaker type position for the cemetery. Last year, we had quite a few service requests related to what people thought were they were unfair conditions at the cemetery. Some were obviously marmot related. Lots of issues when you're dealing with people that have you're reliving either the hardest day of their life or doing something with a loved one. They expect a certain visual there, which they may or may not get. We didn't think it was that bad, but having someone there for markers, the day-to-day maintenance of it, we currently get there about once a week to mow and maintain those things. We've had up to 30 cremation interments, 6 full burials, 26 markers installed, and we had about 20 maintenance requests that were related to marmots by themselves. So it was a big area of service requests for us last year. And again, the crew does what they can, but they take care of every green space in town. And that is one that they have made some strides forward in. But again, with the markers, the amount in there and the care that you need to take around those things, we feel that would be good moving forward. Yeah.
Have you controlled them or are they still running rampant?
They're still there. We're having planned to move forward in the spring with the trapper that we enlisted at the end of last year. They seem to go dormant right in August and they'll be out in full force. We did have some luck. I know he's done some reconnaissance on most of the whole area up there as to where they are and where they go. They're just a lot less prevalent now, or right at about in August, right after we gathered his services.
I did notice the difference. I go up there every once in a while, and I noticed near the end of the year that I only really saw one hole and hardly any. I went up there in June and it was like a stampede up there. But I did notice, I'm assuming he was doing his job and moving them on. So it's much better. I have to also, this is one of the biggest complaints, phone calls that I get all year long is the cemetery situation. It's all year round because most people have somebody buried up there and they're upset. So it's something we need to keep a focus on and keep working towards.
The next one is the GIS position. I think the CEO wants to speak to that one.
CEO.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. To back up a little bit on the summer students. So, this is proposed. We're asking for you to return the two summer students that were cut last year. I'm sure you've all got phone calls over the summer about, different, garbage cans and weed eating and things like that, where weeds are growing. That's primarily what those people do. And then obviously if it pleases you and you want to see a bit more work done in the cemetery, we're suggesting that's a very cost-effective way of putting somebody up there for the meat of the season. And it probably wouldn't necessarily be that person camped up there the full time, but we'd be able to put the crew in there, a couple of times a week, if not 3 times a week, to do more maintenance while they're moving through to another thing. So logistically, that's for your consideration. Now, GIS has been a bit of a problem since, well, probably before I got here. When I first got here, GIS was housed in development services. One of the planners looked after the system, and there wasn't really a lot of development and capital work and whatnot going on that produced a lot of work for the GIS. Yes, sir.
So I've installed GIS and helped hook it up. Can you explain to council what GIS is and does? So they have an understanding?
I was kind of getting to that.
Okay,
Just wanted to provide a bit of a history of where it lived. So before I get into that, when I got here, that particular planner left. I think she went to Australia to surf, if I recall, and has not come back. So when I hired the first EngTech, me knowing that I needed to get to know the city, the contractors, and all of our infrastructure, I saw the opportunity, because we had that gap in GIS, to bring in a GIS technician. And that's when you saw the young fellow that we had there, Tristan, who worked with us for a couple of years, who was very good. And then while we trained him on the other things that he needed to learn as an EngTech, he managed the GIS system fairly well. So since he's left, it's now an orphan again. So we have an orphan system. We've moved over to a platform that's hosted by the TNRD. Even though we've said it many times, not everybody understands the idea that we're simply giving them our data to host. We can't phone the TNRD and ask them to fix things that don't look right. We can't ask them to put as-built in and update things as we go and as we go through asset management. That's not what we contracted them for. They are simply hosting for us. It's our data. We need to maintain it. That's the way it was before as well, except that, talking to the CEO over a period of time, many times angrily over all the invoices that would come in, every time somebody needed something from the GIS and we didn't have somebody available to do it, they would phone directly to that service provider, who would then send us a pile of invoices. So that service provider did do extra things for us and charged us very well for it. Our current provider doesn't, and we wanted to have control of that. And those invoices were getting quite out of control, to the point where you could virtually pay a body to do all that and then some. So fast forward to where we're at. GIS, Geographic Information Systems, it's not just mapping. GIS is the basis for all of our asset management, where things are. We can manage condition assessments. We can manage all the history of any particular piece of infrastructure that's included in the mapping system. And it's really just a 3-dimensional graphical representation with reportability that tells us what any given thing we click on is. It provides us information on zoning, OCP designations, taxation if we wanted to, ownership if we can put it in there, all kinds of things. It's just a repository of information It can be as big or as small as you want it to be. The point I usually try to make with people, and I've worked with a lot of organizations through the start, and we started working GIS back in about 1999 when I was in a consulting firm, and we watched what it would do with that municipality as everybody tried to build their own systems. Since then, market providers are now providing hosting, but a well-managed GIS system with one person, that one person's probably going to save 2 to 3 times their efforts by everybody else trying to do things off the side of their desk or learn how to do it, because that's not their skill set. When it's done well and it's done fast, information comes quick, people get good presentation maps really fast. Our data is managed so that when we have guys out in the field trying to find something because there's a water leak, they can look at it and count on it rather than go, I don't understand, or that's not where that is because I can't see it, and then take the time to run back to the shop, find some old paper, bring it back out and try and find things that way. So even from a response perspective, it's huge. Now, what we're asking for is for that orphan position to be formalized, because it's bounced around for a number of years and it's not been done well. Hasn't been done at all really since Tristan left, and it wasn't really done well because it was just kind of touched before that. So when we had a person that was in there focusing on that, even if it was just half time, we did a lot better moving things along, getting our records into it, being able to find things with the information. So does that help with the sales pitch at all? Not trying to say sales pitch, but it's kind of like a building block for an organization like this. Without good GIS, we are wasting so much time and effort just trying to, tread water all the time.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see the value of it. So my question is, you're talking about someone's out in the field and they need information. So now do we have to buy more technology for each truck or person to carry iPads or whatever so we can communicate so he doesn't have to go back to the Public Works? What I'm saying is it going to involve more technology down the road?
We have the technology available to use right now. This particular platform, TNRD is developing it, so we're going to get better functionality from their platform over time. Our old system actually had an app for the phones, for tablets, so you'd be able to use that. We're working on that with TNRD right now, but it is web-based. I can get it on my phone easy enough. It's just a matter of logging onto their website. You can see everything. What it doesn't do is GPS track you, so it doesn't tell you exactly where you are, and that's what we're missing from the old system. But they're aware of it. They're going to work on developing that for us.
Okay.
And not just us, everybody in the region. But the technology is common. It's phones, it's tablets, stuff we already have. And it's web-based. So that's really the crux of the body asks over there, plus the fact that we've shifted some bodies around to try and align activities. So you'll see, potentially that development engineering technologist role would potentially move from development services budget over to the infrastructure budget. So infrastructure looked like it's spending more money, development not so much, but that's where it went. The other thing that we're looking at that you've approved through the budget amendment was the addition of a grant-funded infrastructure planner who's going to help us with our asset management and our long-range capital planning, condition assessments, identification of assets, work hopefully with a new GIS person, the Eng techs that'll be collecting data, and I'm really hoping that if we focus for a year, we can get this whole technology system with data up to a point where we can all count on it. And enough people trained using it that it's going to do us a lot of good as well. So that's the dream. Did I help at all? Right? You let me know when I start helping. Okay. So from a body perspective, that's about it.
Cute. Any questions? You're back up.
There's a few capital projects we're looking to push forward as well too. Bridge repairs, we get all of our bridges inspected annually and they usually come back with a report of repairs that need to be done. And year after year, they don't get done, mostly for the part or for the fact that we don't have some of the equipment or the skill set to do it. There's things like a snooper truck. I don't know if you've ever seen that on the highway. It goes on the parks on the bridge and then it actually telescopes up to get underneath it. So on the Houston Street Bridge, for example, there's a bunch of heat tape that has come off that's been noted on the last couple of inspections that we can't physically get to. That'd be one example. And then riprap. There's a few of the bridges that we need to get underneath and riprap that were noted on these last inspections. Main Street Bridge on the south side for sure is one. Riprap, the bridge by A&W, the Vote Street Bridge as well, riprap missing under there that they would like to see put in. And then the Lions Park pedestrian bridge, well, again, a lack of riprap there. The south abutment has settled and underneath it, basically the bridge needs to be lifted up and then get that abutment back into place. It's not in a danger of falling yet by any means, but these are things that we need to look at going forward.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I wanna also help you out with a little bit of a win that we're doing this year. Last year, you guys approved a budget of $900,000 to conventionally, through conventional methods, upgrade the pipe bridge crossing over by the Nicola Reservoir and run a pipe up to the reservoir. What's the best way to put this? We did a little bit of water modeling and discovered that if we only changed the pipe and upsized it by 50 millimeters from Norgard's up to the reservoir, we didn't actually need that river crossing anymore. And then further looking into methods of doing things, we discovered we could probably save some money as well by altering the construction method and how we tender things. So with a bit more hands-on from our own staff, and this is a big win that you'll see the benefit of when the full numbers come in, but we had a $900,000 budget. I'm expecting by the time I get that bridge out of the river and everything done, we're going to be in and around half of that, if not less than half of that spent. Part of that is the way we scripted the water line replacement was we'd go to a directional drill contractor to come in and just drill a pipe in the ground for us. Then Mike's crew went out. They did all the estimating for what they needed for pieces to go with the plans that were made. They did the connection at the top. They came down to the highway. They did the connection at the highway, disconnected the pipe bridge, went over to the other side where it came off of Quilshanna, disconnected things there, set up the two houses that are serviced off of that. All that work we did internally with our internal forces and saved all that contract money. The only thing we have left to do, because that's all in service now, is to tender somebody with a very large crane to come and pull that bridge off its abutments, take it apart and store it for us. And that bridge is useful for other purposes as well if we want to repurpose it. So as a success story, challenging the way we do things and looking for other opportunities in construction methods, let's look at modeling, and you'll see modeling in here as well as part of the things that we should be doing all the time with our sewer and our water system. Saves us a pile of money when we ask the questions and put the professionals on these things to do it. The other thing that after we did that particular line, we tendered out that Quilshanna alley. So that dead end alley that's been leaking quite a bit since, the last 4 years or so. It came in, I think it was on about a $250,000 budget. It came in like $125,000 over budget. So we shut it down. We're not going to do it that way. And it was complicated doing it that way. So we went back to the direction of drill guys and said, how much to pop a pipe in the ground for us and have our guys come in later and do all the connections. Pipe's going to be under $70,000. We're going to end up $200,000 or so budget on that thing. We should end up well below budget by challenging how we do things. We're going to be able to move the location over. Our guys are going to be able to do that while water's live to all the houses, and then one at a time go and reconnect all the houses. So part of the lesson in this, and this applies to just about anything that we do, if we think outside of the box and challenge convention, we're gonna be able to save money. And I think that's one of the things that if we all work together on these things in all of our departments and think about, you look at what corporate services is doing with the filing, that's gonna save us money in the long run. It costs us money up front, but it's gonna save us. We've got duplicates of the same thing stored all over the place, taking up space. So the challenging of things, I think, is where we're gonna win on that stuff. Construction is a key element on that, because there's always big wins in construction. So to that end, did you have any more capital work to talk about? Are we running through the list? Roundabouts, you want me on that? So we've got the roundabouts.
What's happening?
I feel like I should be dancing.
Yeah, maybe open the door and have a look.
Somebody's rocking a little camp up there.
I'm just seeing how much longer we're gonna be. We're gonna a second.
Somebody's phone.
So maybe
Oh.
a second there. I thought we still have an hour to go.
Well, Dave's going outside now, so.
You're I really applaud you thinking out of the box on these things. And, that's what I'd like to see carrying forward.
Yeah,
Instead of hiring, well, I thought you were a lot. I think that doing things like that, instead of hiring people all the time, it's a positive way for public works and recreation, everybody to go.
Okay, and I'll give you a little insight as to where this is going, because if I can challenge our own people to do some of this work, we do not have a construction crew. We have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be replaced. It is actually fairly basic infrastructure to do. But if it's conventional method, tendering and everything else on sewer pipe, and it costs, let's pick a number of, $200,000 a block to contract out just putting a sewer pipe in. And our guys, if we hired a small crew and put an excavator in there, could do it for a third of that, we'll get more infrastructure built over time. Right, so these are the things you're gonna wanna hear over the next couple of years as we reimagine how we do work here and how we employ people. It's the thinking outside of the box that's gonna make us successful and get more done. And these are the things I wanna try and employ going forward. Now, the roundabouts that appear in must be the 2030 end of this thing, is that correct? They're ways out. Those were designed as part of the Boat Street upgrade phases. We have one at Walters and we have one at Grimmett. The one at Grimmett is primarily waiting for the site on the other side of Grimmett to get developed. And when that happens, we have an opportunity really at that point. And we need land to build that one. So we kind of need the developer to have a need at the same time as us so we can work together on that one. Roundabouts, when they were priced, were right around $1 million a piece. Obviously, moving them down the road, that number is going to change significantly with inflation. By the time we get there, we will work towards tightening those numbers up down the road as we go for inflation. The other one that's at Walters, still trying to figure out why they designed it needing property on one side when they could have just shifted it over. But here we are, we're probably going to end up shifting it over because we're going to challenge what they designed at some point when it goes to be built. So we don't have to buy property. But that one can pretty much go anytime. There's lots of space at that intersection. It's just for a matter of money. Now, roundabouts are something that will improve traffic flow. We can definitely use DCC money to help build them because they do increase capacity and traffic flow. Even though we're dealing with one lane, they do have some major traffic benefits when they're done well and used in the right environment. The only thing about roundabouts you have to be aware of, if you've been to West Kelowna at all lately, some of the ones in behind Home Depot and whatnot, when they fail, they fail. And there's no middle ground on those things. They're either overrun or they're not. So what we have on Boat Street, I think from a geometry perspective, from what I've seen, it's going to work fairly well. And we don't have a lot of risk there. So we don't have a lot of risk of failure. But it's just one of those things to keep an eye on. When they work good. When they don't work, they just stop working because you have an absolute mess. So that's what those are all about on those two intersections. Plan for the 2030 timeframe. And as we get closer to that time, we'll start updating numbers. Maybe we'll get lucky and construction costs will start going the other way at some point. If people won't have any dikes to build, right? Sorry, that's on the side. Anything else you'd like to add? Okay, on that one. You've got some other capital there to talk about, do you?
You just like to go over the park stuff. Just I think there was designs done on both Rotary and Fairleigh. You know, Rotary Park is almost completely end of life as far as the apparatuses. Each one we're down to 2 have been shut off completely due to leaks underneath the concrete. You know, it was the sun and something else don't work anymore. The rest do. And the other problem there is the surfacing is coming completely off. So we're looking at different options about, you know, Jess has talked to a bunch of people about getting something like that rubber surfacing, getting it repaired and back down. Or it's something that we may have to scrape off. It's basically a tripping hazard and it comes off. You can flick it off now and you can imagine a bunch of kids in the water and they find a little gap in it, they start pulling and it all comes off. Yeah, and the design for Fairleigh, I believe, is out. Just the other thing, the trash and recycling receptacles. We'd like to try to get some sort of standardization in town. I think the last count, we have 9 different trash receptacles around town. And we'd like to get rid of the ones that have the, like, you know, the lid on top that are really accessible. The lids get thrown off. The newer style that we've got along the active transportation pathway seem to be holding up really well so far, but we'd like to start moving into some of those every couple of years. No, these are the town garbage receptacles, the ones that are, you know, we have, there's the black ones.
Right out here.
Yes, right outside. When you leave tonight, there's one right on the corner. That's the newer style that we're looking to go towards.
Councilor Richard.
Are those the ones that are foot operated that are to avoid wildlife getting into them?
Yes.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
here and
one-
one over there.
Would it be to replace most of them in town or just do them in phases?
Just in phases, ideally. There's most of the ones, the old exposed aggregate bins that are around town with the red lids on them. We'd like to start there with those ones and then move out, at least to get, you know, it'll standardize everything, our bags and whatnot as well.
Yeah. I think we talked about residential garbage bags in policy review.
Thanks. If I could back us up a little bit, going over, there's one more new item on the public works list. It's the airport runway asphalt maintenance. So I'm proposing that we start investing what I'd call little bits in the runway and see if we can start getting the edges on that thing cleaned up and repaved and reset to the proper width, a little bit at a time. Got a little bit of a plan on how to go at it, a little bit of our own work and a little bit of paving work. So I wanted to highlight that as if we don't start putting some effort into that runway and the apron and things like that, we are going to continue to lose width. There's pieces of it cracking due to age and coming off all the way through the thing. And I want to start working my way around and cleaning up those edges and get them moved back out. So if we can come up with a plan, I think $50,000 will get me, you know, 1/8 of the whole thing on one side done, and we'll just kind of work our way around and see what we can do and work towards a large overlay later. If you'd like us to put a bit of money into that each year, I think it'd be money well spent because it's deteriorating very fast. So that's just sort of a backup on that one.
Does that mean the airport road overlay at 600,000, you're going to?
No. Airport road overlay is a different project, so it's got a lot of load damage on it.
This is the runway.
One of the interesting things about airport road is the idea that we put a truck fill and expect all those large, heavy trucks to drive all the way down that asphalt to a dead end, load up with water and drive all the way back and put all that wear and tear on that asphalt is really starting to show the problems. Now, had we put that truck fill someplace a little closer to the highway, it'd probably have a lot less road to manage on our own. But there's definitely some some sections of that road are coming unglued and we're gonna have to dig into them, get them all restructured. And same type of thing with the Houston Street truck route around the backside over to the power plant. That's starting to show a good bit of deformation and rutting and a few bad spots in it. If we don't get on it soon, then we're well into the base for the whole thing when we do get around to fixing it. So I'm looking to try and get some of that stuff fixed where there are breaks and then start working overlays on it to keep it up before we lose the whole thing.
On the capital dike maintenance, you have 15,000 for 3 years and then 20,000. Do we have a dedicated dike person who is qualified to check the dikes?
No, what we do is we do inspections each year and we hire a professional to come and do that. And very much like the bridges, they give us a report with maintenance recommendations. The reports have said the same thing for the last 15 or so years, because it's one of those things that it's either we have the wrong equipment or we don't have the right motivation or the time to go focus on dikes. So I'd like to start focusing on dikes because that's a fairly important thing. We got some new ones going in. We have to learn to maintain the dikes. And honestly, if we have to get a contractor on this stuff to do what needs to be done, then we figure that out. But we can't let these ones get away from us like the previous ones did from way back. They've been overgrown. Like all those cottonwood trees are not
Well,
supposed to be on those things.
I'm really glad you're saying that because, you know, I live on a dike and we have some of the most beautiful fir trees growing in our dike.
Yeah.
You know, some of them are 3 feet tall. Now, I'm just gonna wait till they rip that dike down, then I'm gonna take them out. But I mean, those should have been taken out a long time ago.
When they were this big, they
Well,
could have
when
been
they,
got with a
even
weed
they
eater.
start off little peckers,
Yeah.
you know, but I just let them grow. You know,
Yeah.
I figure not my responsibility and I like them, so.
But those, you know, those root systems will erode and tear that dike apart
Yeah.
over time.
Oh, I know that.
And we
I
have to
know that.
maintain.
Well,
So-
yeah.
So that's sort of the idea is we want to start investing money there to make sure we go do it. And if it means bringing a contractor in to get started on it because we're too busy on other things, then we'll do that. We're also equipped, not really great for a lot of the stuff. We have to be able to get access to things and in a lot of cases, you know, our backhoe, you know, isn't appropriate. But, you know, a couple of years down the road, can't remember when it is, but we had a small mini excavator plan to do a lot of this work. In the meantime, we could go rent one if we have to. So we'll build up to it. Right? Moving into water now. Did I want water? So,
But we take a bit of a break here.
yep. Yeah, I'm sorry for this. The agenda got
So,
jammed up pretty good here.
so
So,
questions that I got is how much longer have we got here? Because we still have an in-camera to go yet.
yeah. If you want, I mean, we can take some of this up later. Obviously, we're not making any decisions tonight. And we can carry these conversations on and get the in-camera stuff done and get you guys home. Most of what I see here, at least from Public Works perspective, just for your knowledge, we're focusing on the water and sewer on the big stuff, not the little stuff right now. So there's not a lot to it, but I will give you the guarded concern that as we figure out exactly what needs to happen with the wastewater treatment plant, what we can actually do with the KenGuard well, grants aside, we are gonna have to start putting things into the capital plan that is not there now. But we're trying to get the order of events and things costed out to a level where when we put them in the capital plan, we know it's gonna happen and there's no risk. Or very little risk, I guess, pricing risk.
So council, though, do? You want to continue on or do you want to call it here, finish off the meeting? It's getting late. So I think we'll call it here. We'll take a 5-minute break, come back, finish off and then get right into the in-camera. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Can I get everybody to kill their mics for a minute?